Selectmen meeting. I'm very excited to be here and finally at last in person and feeling well. So let's pledge allegiance and get going that way.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So is there a formal way to call the meeting to order?
Yes.
Call to order. Okay, I'll call this meeting to order at 6 o'clock. And let's do a roll call. Amanda Cooper. Here. Rob Connell.
Here.
Wayne Gazinski.
Here.
Alex Sassoon.
Here.
Mary Smith. Here. Rich Barrows.
Here.
Thank you. And I need a motion to approve the agenda as written. We do want to remove the executive session. So it needs to be amended to remove that.
I'll approve the agenda as amended.
I'll second.
So that was Rob and, wait, is there anything else?
Wait, I think Mary wanted to add.
That's
Oh, I'm
okay.
sorry.
I'll add
What-
it next time.
No, what do you, go ahead.
Okay, it's okay.
Oh,
man. Might as well put that hat back on.
I know. Maybe I need to put the hat on. Did I miss something?
You just have to do the vote.
Okay, so I have a first and a second. All those in favor? Any opposed? Okay, the agenda as amended is approved. Audience business, yes, ma'am. So you have, 3 or 5 minutes to present what you need to. Cindy, welcome.
Let me give you a hint.
Okay, what is it?
Where it says general audience, because we hold to 3 minutes,
Yes, okay, we hold to 3 minutes.
so you can actually read this.
Oh, okay, that's perfect. Thank you. Okay, then let me read this. Members of the audience have 3 minutes to present any matter of interest not already on the agenda. Letters will be acknowledged, but will not be read aloud.
Okay, so I will speak very quickly for 3 minutes. I'm Cindy Neely. I'm here to give you a very quick report on a special project that doesn't really need to be agendized. Several months ago, we talked about our National Historic Landmark Day. Landmark has dates of significance that ended in 1893. 10 years ago, with the National Park Service's help and the State Historic Preservation Office, we did a comprehensive survey of the entire landmark district. And they told us that they understood 1893 was not when our historic period really ended, so we should do our survey up to 1907. But when it came to talking about our powerhouse over there, they made it clear that because we hadn't had that a date beyond 93 that was recognized as a national district, it had a different procedure. And in order to get the procedure that we would use for the landmark districts, essentially, to be extended to those properties that we had already surveyed, we needed to create an overlaying National Register district that would cover properties. And we extended the period from 1894 to 1929. So I am pleased to tell you that through a small planning grant from the State Historical Fund Planning, we were able to rehire the folks who did our survey, Carl McWilliams of Mount Historical and Eric Twitty, Kyle Williams of Preservation Collaborative, and Eric Twitty of Mount Historical to do the work. And today I had the great privilege of pressing the send button for our extended, what they call the Georgetown Discontinuous National.
Discontinuous.
Yes.
Which
That's almost disrespectful.
all that is there's no boundary around those individual structures. It's the 10 structures in yellow. It includes the powerhouse, it includes Centennial Mill, it includes the The library includes a couple of houses, it includes the Capitol Prize Wine buildings, it includes some notable stuff in our town. We have now 71 pages later. You have a copy of it downstairs. It is an amazingly good historic document. I can say that Carl McWilliams is one of the best in the business. So is Eric. And so we have put our nomination form in all of its glory. It will be reviewed by the state and passed on to if there still are such things as this review, it will be passed on to the federal government for that review. If we get by the state registry commission, it's not ever, nothing is ever a sure thing. But we are very pleased and I was very excited and I feel like the weight's lifted off and
Yay.
it's gone and so.
Congratulations.
That's.
Well, I just thought I would report and I'm not asking for any action, I just want you to know.
Well, thank you, Cindy.
And what-
Cindy, what's the time frame estimated for state review?
Well, there.
Could be a week or a month.
Staff. No, Damien Pichata has been part of all of this all the way through. He has told us exactly what he expects. They have a grant announcement to make in June 13th, so he's not gonna get to it before mid-June. I
Okay,
expect we'll hear from him by the end of June.
okay, great, thank you.
It's been good.
Very good.
Thank you, Cindy.
Thank you. Any other audience business? Okay, we'll conclude the audience business part of the meeting. We have before you payables that we need the board to review and approve. Does anybody have any suggested amendments or corrections?
I have a question on, the police department for on-point auto glass, it was front left door. Is there any details about the vehicle that was involved in that? I'm assuming it was obviously one of our rolling vehicles to the police department, but just as we're trying to kind of keep those expenses organized, is there any information on that one?
The information I have on that is that you're absolutely right. It was a loan vehicle that the county was using at the time. There was a crack in the left side of that and we had to repair it because it's the town's vehicle.
Got it.
And I went back and looked at the IGA, the original, because I thought maybe there's something in there that says county's responsible for paying. Nope, it's at the discretion of the police judge.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? So is there a motion to approve the payables from May 1, May 31?
So moved.
Wait. May 31. No, it can't be. I was just looking at that. That's not gonna be the right date. So this has to be,
Yeah, May 31.
yeah,
4-1.
4/1.
4/31?
No,
4/1.
no, we had
There was payables for 322 to 43 on the last meeting.
yeah.
So it's gotta be 4 to.
There's one
today.
in here for 4/1, so I'm gonna say it's
Our last payables were through 4/27.
Oh, yeah,
So
sorry, I
we're
looked at the
4/28 through,
555, what I see.
So that's a correction. 428 through
4/27, so.
427, 428 through 55.
All right, I make a motion to approve the payables from 4/28 through 5/5.
Second.
So that is Wayne and Mary. Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Is all in favor? Any opposed? The payables pass. Now we have minutes from the April. What am I saying? Okay, we have minutes to approve from the Board of Selectmen meeting from April 8th. Does anyone have any changes or corrections to those meeting notes?
I submitted some corrections to Bridget that she has reflected in the most updated version, which is in this one, but she's got it.
So you have that, Bridget?
I do, yes.
Okay, great.
Madam Police Judge,
Yes.
Bridget, do you have an announcement today?
We're caught up on minutes.
Yes, you are.
That was a little suspenseful. She was gonna say.
I know.
Gotta go.
No, where that was gonna go. Thank you.
Good job, James.
So do we have a motion to approve the minutes as corrected for April 8th, 2025?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Any opposed? Okay, very good. And we have minutes from April 22nd. Any corrections to be made there?
And those were also submitted to Bridget, which is updated.
Okay, so Bridget, we're all updated?
Yep.
Very good. Do I have a motion to approve the April 22nd Board of Selectmen minutes?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any approved? I mean, any opposed? All right, those minutes are all passed. So we have some action items on the agenda. The first one is the police task force appointments. And we have discussed the fact that we needed a task force put together to talk about investigating the possible options for long-term provision of law enforcement services. And we have these applications that have gone out. We have 5 of them in front of you. And so any discussion, comments for the board?
You didn't have anybody from Ward
We do
3,
have a Ward
correct? We do now?
Yeah, McWilliams is Ward 3.
What address, what's the physical address?
Michael is also in Ward 3.
Okay.
What's the physical address for that?
What's your address, man? 1675 Silver Cloud Circle.
We have a Ward 1, and who is the Ward 2?
Oh,
There's
Michael Richter?
Michael
I don't know
Richard.
which one, but
Your Ward 3.
I thought I said
Okay.
that.
Well, the record needs to reflect, I need to recuse myself from, any discussion on Michael Richter's appointment, as he is one of my employees.
Oh.
so 1675 Silver Fox, that's Ward 2, correct?
The two, I thought it.
I
I wish I had
think
my-
Ward 3 kicks in at the 1700 block. Matt, are you in Ward 2 or 3? I think you're in 2.
Well, that's what we're just discussing.
Because I think Ward 3 starts around the 1700 block.
It's the one off of Sunburst.
I'm
You're
sure
talking
those-
about that building.
I'm furthest to the,
House circle that is by 15th Street, and then there's another weird little divot that comes off of Sunburst.
so Cloud Circle goes by trying to.
Okay.
You're in that-
It doesn't come through, because Buckley's yard is not.
Right, and I know the street that you're on,
Yeah.
because way back when Ward 3 started at the 1500 block, and then there was a little bit of change because of population, and it got moved to closer to the 1700 block.
But it does have a little weird divot. I'm gonna look it up.
I
He
have
has
this itty
to.
bitty little thing as opposed to your laptop, because you can.
I know, I really wish I had my computer.
So don't we have a ward map downstairs?
I'm looking at it.
Okay. Well, I was gonna say one big enough for some of us who,
I know for a fact Carrie Ann and Ellen are blind.
so should we go through ward by ward? What would you like to do for Madam Police start?
So why don't we look at each of these applications? So for Mac Williams, are saying that he's in Ward 3?
That's what we have, so.
Well,
Maybe start with one.
but we're selecting one person from each ward.
So Ellen Elliott, I believe, is from Ward 1, is that
Carrie
correct?
Ann is from one.
And Carrie
And
Ann.
Carrie Ann is from Ward 1.
And I know Ellen is out of town, out of state because she had a death in her family, so she's not present tonight.
And Peter Werlin is Ward 2.
Yep, she's here.
Right, because that's near my house. And then we have Ward 3, we know Michael Richter is Ward 3.
And Ward 2.
And then Mac is where?
Matt's Ward 2. Michael is Ward.
Michael is also Ward 2?
Ward 3.
Yeah, okay, that's right, yeah.
Michael,
Okay.
that's the easy one, so what's?
So what we need to do is make a motion
It's
for,
Ward 2. Mac is two, that's, okay, not alone.
Yeah.
That's- okay.
One house.
And we wanted
Yeah.
one from each ward? Correct, okay. So for Ward 1, we have two candidates. We have Ellen Elliott and we have Carrie Ann McHugh. Any discussion on those?
I think both are really strong candidates. One of the standouts, so that I did notice, I felt maybe they could both integrate a little bit. Carrie Ann is involved with the chat team, and I think at some point this committee will potentially want to interface. And so my vision was that we could possibly give the opportunity to Ellen. And then when the time comes to utilize the chat team, utilize Carrie Ann in that capacity as a liaison, because she does serve as a community rep on that committee.
Okay,
That was just an observation.
What does chat stand for?
It's a community outreach team that comes out on mental health crises that was established after the solar eclipse. Yeah.
Plus to realize that just because some of these people who have expressed an interest in this committee doesn't mean that they won't be able to participate in community forums that we will be conducting to get input from everyone.
that's right.
So it's just really someone who needs to sift through the information, so it's not like we're excluding anyone, it's just, you know, the
We're
time,
just choosing one person, but to your point, anyone can remain involved as we
Right.
move on.
it's the time dedicated to put, the time dedicated and available to put into sifting through this information, so. I know Ellen has participated in, you know, certain things throughout the community also, and I just, you know, think she can bring a wealth of information to that from various perspectives. You know, she has a tie-in with the school. You know, she has a tie-in with a lot of different organizations in town. I would feel comfortable with her being a representative from Ward 1.
I do too, I think that's a good choice.
Sure.
I think both would be great, but I think we can utilize both, and so I'm fine with Ellen.
Okay, so we are going to make a motion for each candidate by ward. So for Ward 1, is there a motion on the floor to accept Ellen Elliott as the police task force candidate?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so that's Ward 1. For Ward 2, we have John McWilliams, or, yeah, right there, and we have one candidate. Any comments?
So we have Peter Whirling is also.
And Peter Worland, I'm sorry, Peter. Sorry, I had you with the wrong piece of paper. There we are. So questions, conversation around those two candidates?
Since you guys have taken the time to come, and I appreciate that, could you speak a little bit to, you know, in addition to what you submitted to us here? Like.
Well, I think she's working with me. I can go first. I'm Peter Whirling from 1031 Taft Street, and I'm interested because I've lived in a town of about 3,000 that did not have police coverage. It was all sheriff's coverage, and I was on their fire department. So ran a lot of calls and saw big, excellent sheriffs, but I liked living here where we had local, like truly a local place or person. And I've been involved, I've been on the combined SWAT team, the Rocky Mountain Combined Tactical Team for, it'll be 20 years this November. We used to represent Park, Gilpin and Clear Creek, now we're still Gilpin and Clear Creek SWAT team. And through my emergency services work, which started in 1981, I've worked with about every law enforcement person you can see. I've had the training and the new trainings for mental health stuff. Like one thing, just a glaring omission, there should be a police officer here for every one of your meetings. And my whole life has been taking care of people from violent events, but that's the one thing that I just don't think we get from the sheriff's office. There should be a police officer at the spare room for every single big meeting like this. So I have a lot of things that I kind of lean towards having a local police officer, but I'm also money conscious, try to see where the budget fits in. I'd be interested in perhaps a hybrid model where we have a police chief or marshal, whatever we're currently calling it, who would be a 40-hour-a-week person and on call, and we contract out, you know, when you figure 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, that's even more than 3 police officers, so, maybe you have the local person who can, follow up on all the merchants' concerns and everything on the real local level, and then we contract out for 911 coverage on the off hours, so just a lot of different potential things, but I think the crime wave seems to be over, with some of the big arrests of the car theft gangs, but, anyway, just something I've been interested in, and happy to serve if selected, but either way, I'll participate if that'll matter to me.
Thank you.
I know you're a busy man, and getting 6 people in the room to go through this information over the next several weeks or a couple of months. Are you,
I have no regular schedule, that's why, so that would be the issue, I can schedule ahead, but my schedule's done through the end of July right now, or
Okay.
August, so I have to schedule. If I need a specific day off, I can sometimes trade, but.
but you know your schedule between now and August,
I
for the
do.
most part? Okay,
Yeah.
well, and I would hope that we're ready to make decisions and directions by then, or someone, I would hope, so.
Also, so you guys know, the committee that all of you will be working with, if you are interested, is Mary, Georgia, and me. So if any of you wanna quit now. I know, right?
Thank you. Peter, Mac, would you like to say something?
Everybody knows me as Matt. My name is John McWilliams. I'm a Marine Corps combat vet. Recently retired from Colorado, Department of Transportation. I was also in law enforcement. I've been in community service all my life. I was the president of the St. Mary's Metropolitan District. I like to contribute to small towns because they are small towns. If they don't get our input, then, you know, things can go awry easily. So I will not be as eloquent as Pete, but I will just say that's my background. I'm here for a reason. I've always contributed to my community. I'd like to keep doing that. So I've got a lot of in-depth background. Believe that I'd be a valuable resource. Thank you.
And your time availability more than mine, probably. Take back and I'll have.
Matt, how long have you lived here in town?
In the county, I've lived in the county for 25 years. I'm a native of Colorado. I was born and raised in Golden. I've lived in the town for 10.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for these gentlemen? Any conversation? Wow, I know. I'm like,
This is a
wow,
hard,
this is a very hard one. We've got 2 really qualified people.
Well, then you just, you know, but if Matt, you pick Matt, you get Pete. That's a 2 for 1. I don't think it's hard at all.
Yeah.
That makes me the winner, really.
You may be right about that.
it's a really hard decision, and I do think that, both of you bring a lot to the table, and I know, because I've worked with you, Peter, more especially at the school, I really like your approach to a lot of the security and the things you've done with the school. So I'm partial to that work that I've seen you do, and I know, Mac, you are obviously a very dynamic person, so I think either would be great. I do think that it is a tough one. I don't wanna hurt anybody's feelings, but is it really hurting feelings? Cause it's not, yeah, I mean, I think that both of you would be amazing fits for this, but the commitment would be.
My feelings won't be hurt if you pick Pete.
Me neither. You just like my bullet.
So now that
I do like your bullets.
neither one of you have fantastic summer vacation plans that, you know, you're gonna cancel because you're gonna be so committed to that. I'm sorry, neither do
I
I.
am going quite a bit this summer. I've got I work out the Colorado 500 motorcycle rally, and I also will be in Montana. So, I mean, I'm telling you, if you pick Matt, I will help in any way.
Well, Mac's the 2 for 1 guy, it looks like. I'm thinking that's it.
Some of our other commissions have alternate members too, correct?
I was gonna say, we could also,
Commission's
the possibility of.
This is an ad hoc committee that we're gonna be done with, okay?
Yeah,
Let's,
okay.
let's not.
Yeah,
We did have the original exception with an at-large member. just saying. I know you're looking at me like, seriously, Cooper?
We're not.
Yeah, we're gonna be here all night.
I know, so is there a motion for one of these lovely gentlemen?
I'll make a motion to appoint John McWilliams as the Ward 2 Police Task Force volunteer.
Do you have a first?
I'll second it.
Second, thank you, Rich. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Sorry.
You're not out of it, you have.
No, because remember, you offered to come along, so,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, you're absolutely that.
Hey, welcome aboard,
That's a
Josh.
nice, such a nice problem.
Okay, and I'm recused on the next.
Okay, so for Ward 3, we have Michael. Rich, hi, Michael, how are you?
Good.
Good, would you like to say something to us?
So I know a lot of you, I don't know all of you. I've been in town for about 3.5 years now, almost 4. Came down from Grand County, I was in Grand County for 5 years before that. I have a very wide experience of where I've been. I've spent years in Chicago, Philadelphia, Atlanta, New Jersey. I grew up on the plains in Colorado, both between Greeley, Colorado, and all the way down southeast in Rocky Ford.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, for many reasons, there's a lot of reasons I don't go back home, but I'm a server in town, I also work at the local microtel as well. My wife runs the local cannabis company in town as well, so a lot of connections and a lot of people that I get to talk to that might not potentially have their viewpoints put forth or heard in a committee of this type. I don't really have any agenda coming into this, I would say. I very much want to hear what the options for the town are, what the limitations are, what we can actually conceivably do versus what we would all like to do. And it would be really nice to be part of that process to find where we're going with that. And to, since it sounds like you are also looking at ways to spread that information after those decisions are made and ways to communicate with the town, I think that opens up a whole nother range of town that you haven't seen yet.
Do you think you can convince your boss that? You know,
I can convince that woman to bank.
Have you tried? I mean, what's your availability for all these meetings?
And that's the positive though there, because I am working with both the restaurant and the hotel, that is usually on a weekly scheduling, so you tell me when I need to be available and I can make it work around my schedule.
Okay. And you're not gonna fire them if you know?
I won't fire you.
Don't try to do it on a Saturday or a Sunday.
Yeah, that's
Probably
not. I'll go.
Holidays are out, you know, that kind of thing, but.
Very good. So is there a motion to accept Michael Rickman as the candidate from Ward 3 for the police task force? So moved. Second? And that was Alex. All those in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. Welcome, you guys. That's very exciting. We're very happy to have everybody here.
So now I wanna know what that was that Dennis and Kasia had, because they didn't think anyone was going to come out with this. So who wins? I don't care what the bet was.
Believe me, I've lost a lot of bets in the last 3 weeks.
We want to maybe appoint Peter as an alternate since he's here and show up and have that as a possibility. So that if we needed to pull in another member, we have somebody.
We had an at-large member, right? That was supposed to be.
Well, we kind of, did we pull
We
the at-large?
changed that, but remember, this is a recommending committee.
It's a recommending.
We're not making any decisions. It still comes back to the board.
I
Right.
just think there's a lot of value in his, I'm sorry, I'm not letting you off the hook for him. There's a lot of value in the EMS experience that he had because
Yes.
he did originally have it as an at-large member. I would not be opposed to his input.
Would you like to make that motion?
Sure, I motion to appoint Peter Rowe as the alternate member of the
I'll
police
second,
committee.
I'll second that, Rich.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Alternate.
Any opposed?
I'm opposed. Peter, it's nothing personal.
All right, well, there you are. Our at-large member. Thank you. That was very good. Thank you all for stepping forward too. It's really appreciated.
So I need to ask a question here.
Yes.
Because I am a combat vet, the acoustics of this room are kind of screwing with my hearing. So who is, if I am elected or not yet elected, and not yet appointed to Ward 2. Who is Ward 1 and who's Ward 3?
So we have Ward 1.
Elliott is Ward 1. And Michael Vick is Ward 3.
Yes.
Ward 3, Alan Elliott is not here.
No.
That is correct, she is not here.
I apologize.
No worries. Thank you.
I see him as always kind of screwing.
So we won't be insulted if you guys don't wanna stay for the rest of the meeting.
Yes. Yeah, it's up to you.
I will.
I'm out.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you all.
Next item.
Assuming
Oh,
you will
sorry.
reach out with what, where, when, and why after this, right?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, just making sure.
No.
Thanks, guys.
Thank
Thank
you.
Yeah.
Next item is the Scott property access, and Jerry, did you want to take that?
Sure, you got it,
Okay.
you got it. Received a memo on the file from the April 28th memo, but the members of the longstanding members of the board are familiar with this longstanding request from the Scots that have been pending for over a year, probably more like 2. I haven't met the Scots, I haven't seen the Scots in person in a couple of years. Mr. Scott, there, okay, all right. And I invited them to, because they weren't required to come, but certainly welcome them. I'm glad they're here. Glad Mr. Scott too. In any event, the Scots own property as part of an old mining claim that's just east of Skyline Drive, but it's separated from Skyline by about 125 feet of a little finger of property that the town received either from BLM. As the board knows, the BLM property surrounding the town and some property in town was transferred to the town from BLM as part of this 1993 Public Transfer Act. And because it was public property, government, federal property, it is imbued with a public purpose and can't be disposed of by the town for private purposes. For example, the town can't sell it for a residential development, for example. And we've been over that territory frequently and I've done a lot of research on it, but that's the truth. And over the years, BLM has administered that property or has responded to requests from various local governments that ended up with title to that property. When they would say, gee, we want to use part of this property for not a recreational purpose, but for this commercial purpose. And BLM, the local state office, has over the years responded in several ways. And there are some times that they have said, no, that use is inconsistent with the public nature of why we gave you the land to begin with. And under the 1993 Transfer Act, in the event the town transfers any of this property or an interest in the property, which I'll get to in a second, to a transferee that's not eligible. So not another government agency or a nonprofit for a private use, then that voids that transfer and it exposes the town to not only having to revoke that transfer, but pay the government back for that land. And that's not a thought that the town wants to be in. I'm trying to avoid that for some time. After the Scots acquired their property, they requested an easement from the town granted an easement. That easement required that they construct the driveway within a year, and that wasn't done, so the easement expired. And after that time, we learned that the Transfer Act does not allow the town to transfer an interest in property. But interest in property are leases, easements, and deeds. You know, all of those of you that own property, that's an interest in property, but a license is not. And that's a form of use of the property that I've been able, after months of chasing BLM around, finally got BLM to write us something, because I really needed something in the file to be able to show to BLM a year from now, 2 years from now, 10 years from now, that this use is continued to be permitted. But I finally got BLM to say, yes, that's not a useful object to. It was pretty terse email, it was the best I was going to get after a lot of effort, but that's what we had. So we checked that box in terms of confirming that this is not an interest in real property, but it's a license and it's designed to allow them to build their driveway and pull building permits and build a house there, which I know they want to do. So we've been able to achieve that, and that's the memo. Attached, of course, is the revocable encroachment license agreement, and the town has a code section that lets you grant the revocable agreements for use of any town property, and we've got a number of those around town. So there's, for example, a fence encroaching, we've got a couple of those that encroach into right of way and grant right of way permits for that. There's a stone wall, I think, at one point that has an encroachment agreement, and this is similar to that. Within that, you'll notice though on the second page of the license, there's a list of use of town property restrictions, and those are designed less to regulate the Scots and more to be able for me to waive at BLM to say, this use is inconsistent with the public use, and you'll notice it says no barriers, keep it free of litter. It's not exclusive. Always in compliance with both federal and state local rules. I really designed that to help in what I think now is probably unlikely event that BLM will say, we're inquiring into this and tell us more about it. And I want to be able to wave this around and say, no, that's perfectly, that is designed to continue to protect the adjacent public values of the land that BLM land town owns that's nearby. So I appreciate your patience. I appreciate the patience of the Scots in waiting for this. I know they're anxious to build their home there and can't get a building permit from the town. This property's in town, as is their property. You can't get a building permit from the town unless you have legal access. But if this is approved, and I absolutely recommend it, they will have legal access and they'll be able to move this and they'll be able to access their property and build their home. I haven't answered questions, but I know the Scots have waited a long time for this moment, and I'm sure if Mr. Scott wants to address the board, he should.
Mr. Scott, would you like to address the board?
I don't know if I have a lot to say, but thanks for finally getting here. It's taken a long time. Yeah, it's just been a long process. I'm glad we're here, so no, I don't have a lot to say.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Any questions from the board? Any discussion?
Maintenance of that road?
It would drive the Scots obligation. In fact, that's more or less in
I figured so, I just wanted to.
paragraph 4. Yeah, question their obligation to maintain it. Of course, it's their driveway, so they have an interest in maintaining it. But yeah, that's covered in the license agreement.
So is the driveway plan the same as what was approved initially before? So you have some proposed change, you don't have to get into those changes, they're just,
We had to change it. The driveway that was planned went straight from Skyline to our property. We wound up being at 14 to 16% grade. Which, yeah. You switch it to an S turn drive, and it gets in town code.
Yeah, it's the other one, you never get a permit, because the driveway is too steep.
Right.
but then that hasn't gone through the process yet of being approved because you're waiting on this.
The license.
But also too, that would fall under the permit process anyway, to get a final seal, correct, Keisha?
The
Okay.
driveway would not, we did have Kelly look at this particular one and he made some requests as far as the top of the driveway, so that fire trucks would be able to turn around.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, and as far as we're concerned,
I mean, either way,
driveway is not a structure that is subject to building code. It would be a matter of drainage, which Ryan is also looking at this, and fire access.
but it does fall under, eventually getting a CO, we have to have a driveway that fits.
Correct.
So regardless, it somewhere falls in the process.
Yes.
There's some loose guidelines we have to meet.
Yeah.
Payrolls, fire truck.
Yeah, we don't usually have that promise much in time, it would be kind of restrict. And at some point, when we've done stuff, we had to show that the driveway wasn't too steep during the process. So, but yeah, but that, we all own land, I mean, it's still, because they're maintaining it, stuff to fit within the code and stuff, so
Right.
it really doesn't matter. It's the driveway to maintain.
Is there a time frame requirement for completion of driveway and or house?
No, there is not. And in fact, if approved, it's a perpetual license. There is no 1 year window, there's no reason for it, in my opinion, and because it's perpetual and it runs to successors and assigns. The Scots, if they chose to sell their property, whether they already built the house or they built it and lived there for 10 years, are able to, and that was important because if they're gonna make that investment, the access needs to be something that doesn't just go away. So there is no more 1 year time frame here, and I'm glad you asked the question because there was previously, but there is not here.
That's so correct, Jerry, right? It's to ensure that they have access by vehicle to get to their property.
Yes,
And that's forever, so yeah, it's not necessary to have a house on there.
Yes.
It's necessary to be able to get to their property.
That's right.
Then the only other thing I'd like to see though is, because it is town property. And we have these BLM oversights, that anything that you do to disturb whatever vegetative growth is there be replaced. So if you take down 10 trees to do your new curvy driveway, I don't know what your plan is, you know, except for that you're replacing 10 trees, because this is public, it's there for the public. And, you know, not even suggesting that if it's 100-year-old tree, that you're bringing a 100-year-old tree, but I think we should be replacing the vegetation. This has come up when we talked about Argentine North, and the town restricted ourselves because it got to that one spot along Argentine where we were gonna start running into trees. And, you know, that wasn't in the proposal, so.
Yeah.
If we're protecting town land, open space, BLM oversight, I'd like to see that restoration piece. We figured somehow into this agreement. Or license, encroachment license.
Is that possible?
Is there
Well,
something where I have permission to revegetate?
Would that be part of?
Oh, I'm not saying don't take the trees down, I mean, I'm not saying you can't,
Right,
but
do
yeah.
I have permission to plant trees on town property, and I mean.
So wouldn't that be part of permitting? If the trees have to come down, is that part of the permitting process?
Talking about field land, not his personal land.
yeah,
Right. Yeah, I see.
I don't know, yeah, like,
You
tell
can't
us
do
that, like, I don't think I do
No,
field and land.
Well, you can't go down and cut them down, and you can't take rocks from along the highway because they don't belong to just the driver by.
Right.
You know, I mean, so you're supposed to leave it, you know, as it is. And I'm not saying you're doing this, but hypothetically, what if he cuts it all down so that he can have this driveway, if he needed to do that?
But I agree with you, I'm just trying to figure out how we. How.
so
go
can
about
Jerry,
that.
can you address that, Jerry? What happens on BLM lands if these guys have to take trees down on lands that's not town lands? What happens?
well, this is a complication, at least, you know, see if I've got 3 doors to, you know, to choose from.
Take a chainsaw.
And I wasn't, really, you know, prepared for that kind of wrinkle, but, to begin with, a license as written allows you to do stuff on the land, you know, if you, in order to be able to use it for access, this license contemplates that trees can get cut down, because you can't really use a license like this, which grants you the right to have a access for motor vehicles from point A to point B, and if there are trees in between point A and point B, you have the right, as written, to cut those trees down to build your driveway more or less along the alignment that's shown on the map with this packet, right? That's this S-curve design. So let me make maybe 2 or 3 other points and give you some choices. So as just a going in matter, a license lets you do things, otherwise it's pointless to have it, right? Especially if you got a license for a driveway, you gotta be able to build a driveway. So it lets the driveway be built, and it does mean, as presently written, they could cut down the trees, period, and be done. Because it's public property, there's provisions in the license to say, look, it needs to be in compliance with all the regulations, et cetera, but the BLM regulations don't prohibit the cutting down of trees for a permitted use, and this is being made into a permitted use. So there's that. I can think of a couple of ways to address the issue that Mary raised. One would be to, probably the least impactful of our process here, would be to make as part of the motion approving a license, directing that as a part of the building permit review and site review process, that appropriate revegetation of the driveway be undertaken, and whether that means revegetation within the area of the driveway or adjacent driveway or on the Scott's property, such that you have a replacement of trees somewhere. That's one door. That I think would allow you, and I'm making this up as I go on, because I often have to, because that's my job. That would allow you, I think, to approve this as written, not have to change it, but would accompany it with this requirement, so that that requirement would exist, and when, as and if they came in to pull the construction permits, that it could be made a condition of those permits that allows this to be signed up and recorded the way it is. The other door would be to add a requirement that equivalent vegetation be replaced on or near the site, to replace the vegetation removed or trees removed, pardon me, as a part of construction of the driveway permitted here, and that would have to be a change to the form, and we'd have to add it and get it re-signed up again, which we could do. So of the choices, I think you've got three to try to focus your work here, and then you take a motion. One would be no change at all. We understand a license required sometimes, that allows you to take down trees. That's how it is. That's one door. Door number two, I'm gonna then order of the complexity would be motion to approve the license. Further move to direct that revegetation take place in association with the construction of the driveway and the building permit for the house. Doesn't require change to this, but does lay that obligation. Door number three, change the license to embed that requirement in this document. Those are your choices.
I'd rather see the third because it relates specifically to the town property and the parts that BLM has some control over. Whatever you choose to do in your landscaping of your own personal home or my personal home or your personal home, I think that's separate from why we're looking at this encroachment license. I just think we're protecting the town land. Again, with BLM sitting there on our shoulder and the revegetation of that overall area. Like I said, I'm not looking for exact replacement. I just think that it should be, as restored or revegetated, whatever the right term is, for that parcel. And then that way you can do whatever you want in your own home and make it appropriate to the design and the architect of your house. So I want you to be able to access your house. I really do. I just, we're not cutting trees down to build things here, we try not to do that.
No, but if we're granting.
What if they wanna put lovely gardens in between the switchbacks?
Well, but-
And make it really look like gorgeous, what if that?
And it may, and I appreciate that, and that's fine if it's in between the switchbacks on the town property that we're giving them the license to go on. I'm also trying to be respectful for the rest of the neighborhood and the rest of the block, and if you've lived there for X amount of years, and that's kind of the expectation you had, and it's town land and it's not gonna be built on. We kind of expect it to stay that way. Now, he might make it look tons better, you drive by it and it just kind of looks,
Right.
So, and I would imagine with all these S curves and rock walls that have to go up, just by that itself, it's gonna look nice.
I mean, I'm just gonna say that, I'm no engineer, but those elevations look like it's pretty steep.
No, I agree with that,
so.
but it's open space. It kind of falls into that, it might not be defined exactly as that, but that's what it's there for.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm trying to protect.
Yeah, I mean, technically with the driveway itself, it has to be a certain size or whatnot. And it's similar to kind of what's already been cut in there, correct? So I mean, I think. Like, I don't know how many,
Wide.
Yeah, not any more
Do you
trees.
even know if you have to cut down any more trees? What comes to the table?
So,
That was part of the question, exactly. There may not be
Having
trees to cut
Victoria
down.
access the session here, and it's like, it doesn't matter, 'cause
yeah,
This town was, this property was owned by Kent, Starkville. And he used the lower half of the property that wasn't his as a dumping ground for boulders from the mine. So the lower half of this hill is all boulder field. So most of it will be covering up boulders. When you get up a little higher, there's trees, they're not dense trees. And then after you make the first S curve, it'll tie into the driveway that we can't use anyhow. So, no, I don't think there'll be a lot of trees. I would guessing, I'd have to go walk it. 10 trees.
10 trees. And the license allows those 10 trees to be removed, right? Jerry, the BLM is fine with
Sure,
that?
as written now, it does not restrict the,
And the BLM has been clear that, hey, if you need to remove trees, that's fine, that's part of the licensing.
Well,
Good.
No.
BLM hasn't been clear, at all.
Right.
I've spent, close to a year trying to get them to respond to
Mhm.
multiple requests and letters and emails and phone calls. And I've gotten from them, we believe that this is not something we will need to enforce. Like 2 sentences, that's the best I have, folks, I can't get it. Like from Europe, that's what I got from them, so I can't like hand you the BLM revegetation guidelines, because they
No.
just aren't.
I
Sure,
read them and they're.
So what you're
Yeah.
gonna need to do is decide which one of these doors, if you can sort of have for door number one, you just approve the license the way it is. Door number two, you approve the license and direct that this revegetation happen as part of building.
Part of the
permit.
building permit.
Door number three, you embed that same language more or less in the license. I've been noodling on and writing down what that language would be, whether it be in door two or door three. And it would be language something like licensees shall replace trees removed as a part of construction of the driveway within the access area substantially, which is important, in the amount removed. Because it would seem to me that the precise numbers are less important than,
Right,
you know,
the spirit.
substantially replace what it is you're taking out. So, if you make the motion for door number 2 or 3, I'll assume that you're directing me to write that language in either of those 2 doors.
So door number 2 involved attaching the requirement for revegetation to the building permit.
Correct.
Right, and
So
would you have to
outside-
say that in here?
No, I mean, when we get, when we get a motion,
Right,
I'll help you with that, but the door number 2 motion would be approve the license as presented and direct that the building permit contain the condition written by Mr. Gall.
right,
And
okay,
door number 3 would be approve the license as presented with the amendment as written by Mr. Gall. Door number 1 is approve the license.
all right,
So somebody will make a motion, I'm
Could
sure.
I,
yeah, go ahead.
could I might ask, is there not a door number 4?
No, there never is.
No.
Well,
I'm sorry, I'm being flippant. Go ahead.
you know, we're essentially potentially requiring Mr. Stark here to, let's just call it replace, in simplistic terms, replace like for like,
Mhm.
somehow.
Yes, that's,
So we're placing the onus on him.
Mhm.
What if we changed that whereby some form of financial donation is made to the town and we take care of it? Because there's this whole question about where would this replanting occur?
Well, it would likely occur on the property, correct? Because we're wanting to maintain that look and that feel of that open space. Am I?
I'm suggesting that it be on the property that we're giving him the
Right, exactly.
access for, so that he's allowed to do whatever
He needs.
on
yeah.
his property, but our property, we're asking for replacement.
We're right there.
I think the hardest part is just kind of overanalyzing it. I mean, I'm going back realistically to door number 1 and 2 at the most, just
Me too.
because we either give them the license or we don't. We're giving them an access, so it's not like you go in there and just wipe out all the trees. he gets his width of the road, it gets cut up in there.
For our
Yeah,
own interest, we want as many trees.
yes, I mean, you're only gonna get to cut out what's kind of in the way of a road that you're forced to put in by our standards. So it's not like you can just bypass certain trees, it's those trees that are in the way. You know, I mean, without making it overcomplicated, at the end of the day, he's not gonna do more harm than what's necessary, because down the road, we can pull the encroachment license anyway. So I mean, I think we're kind of overcomplicating it. You know, and I mean, and to try to like, I mean, yeah, nothing wrong with him trying to explain, but how do you even think about?
So do
How
you
much
wanna
money
just
is
poll
supposed
the
to get?
board, door number 1, door number 2, door number 3?
Probably door number 2, I mean, yeah, if, I guess if you pull a certain number of trees down, we can plant them in a way that eventually it.
So
makes it
Amanda,
look
where are
like
you
it
on that?
was. I'm not sure.
And obviously we can't put them on the property that we're getting a license to use.
Sure.
That will then be a driveway with some,
Well, I mean, your own
So-
property is your own property, we can't.
Off
that
that
what you have
property.
to plan on your own property.
So Amanda, let's hear from you.
I think that, I mean, I think we are overcomplicating this a little bit, and I certainly, from the get-go, this has been a daunting proceeding for the Scots and Jerry, a lot of time and town effort. I certainly respect the fact that we do wanna make sure that we're maintaining the natural
Absolutely.
environment, we wanna make sure that we're respectful to the neighbors, but I think I'm kind of trusting that there's a little bit of, I don't wanna use the word honor system, but just good judgment in this, and you guys aren't gonna clear cut beyond defensible space. Because you don't want, like, it's not gonna look like a compound or anything up there,
Right.
and so
So is that door number 2 for
that would
you?
probably be 2, yeah.
And then Rob?
I was gonna say the same thing, I mean, it's their driveway,
Right,
they're not going to make it look horrible.
right.
I mean, I would imagine that they, it's.
I think it actually looks really nice.
Our first impressions, like the first second, so door number 2.
And then where are you,
I,
Alex? He likes door number 4. What do you feel is just,
I hear the arguments, and let me ask Mr. Scott. You've heard all the discussion. Are you happy to comply with what we're asking you to do?
which is door 2 or
Door 2.
door 2?
I'm totally fine with, if I take down 10 trees, I'll plant them. Something to plant, once everything's done.
Okay,
Yeah, that's not a problem. Sorry, I'm just curious though,
Yeah.
I plant the trees, that don't get a lot of rain. Am I
Right.
watering these trees? Am I nurturing these trees?
this is part of it,
Do these trees just, do they die? I don't know.
right,
Do they thrive? Maybe, I don't know.
They might,
they might,
Mother Nature takes over.
exactly.
All right, if we leave on Mother Nature, that probably makes it a lot.
So, and Rich, where are you
Become
on
like a
this?
tree farm.
Hang on a second, guys, don't Rich?
I'm at door 2, I'm just a little concerned about other mining properties that are up there surrounding your land that may be owned by someone that we just recently finished up a lawsuit with.
Oh,
And that person may want further access to those properties that may be beyond your home. So that is a little concerning to me, because that could be another, 2-year lawsuit kind of deal.
because he's putting in a driveway?
Yes, because I think there's other lands and mining claims up there that are very close. It's just one?
The American claim was next to ours, versus the Arctic.
There's access to that one, all right?
And there is access
There's
to
no
that?
access. Kim and I disagree on this. He thinks he can make the driveway another way, up the backside between the mountain.
Right.
Oh, I don't know how he's gonna do that. And I've offered to him to share the bottom part of our driveway right before the first S.
Yeah.
If he would drive straight, it would be 50 feet, he could access his own property.
Okay, so tabling that for this discussion and appreciating your concern, Mary, I'm assuming you're door 3.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah, well, I mean, or do you feel different?
You find a fifth door and leaving.
Yeah.
We could get out of here early.
Well, so is there a motion And then Jerry, you may want to guide this motion if we're going towards door two, which seems to be the consensus. I know it's not gonna be a perfect answer, but at least it attaches some level of responsibility for replacing the trees on the permit when we get to that point. And then again, nature takes over if they're gonna, thrive or not. We can't control that part.
But we also have rules within, it's not like once this is done, it's done forever. and
That's
it's
correct.
stated Under no, no,
That's
so we
right,
still have some oversight on it.
absolutely.
And Mr. Scott, you understand that there could be some issues, not only with but with Mr. Sterrett. With.
He and I get along really well, I don't think,
Okay.
personally, I don't have any problems with Ken. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. So is there a motion then for door number two, Jared, do you want to?
Probably, motion, door number 2 motion would be to approve the, rental license encroachment. License agreement between the town and the Scots, as presented, with the condition that at the, time of, building permit, that the building permit be accompanied by a requirement that they shall replace trees removed as a part of construction of driveway within the access area substantially in the amount and vicinity removed.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Within the access area? Or within the access area of, and where he's building his house? When we first started to discuss this, you were including his personal property. I'm looking at the access area, and please correct me if I'm wrong, I'm looking at the access area as the spot where
The
where
license,
driveway is, and the encroachment license pertains.
In understanding that it may be difficult to remove trees from the driveway and plant them right next to the driveway within, because the access area is really just, they're only small, it's on this.
right,
That's why I added, substantially the amount and vicinity removed.
vicinity.
As written, just for full disclosure, I think that would permit, the Scots to, plant the replacement trees off of the access area, but within town land that frankly is on either side of it and underlies the access area. It's right there, rather than requiring them necessarily to plant all those trees around their house upon the mining claim.
So does the motion have to be restated, or I think,
The way I've written it is substantially in the amount and vicinity removed. Because the removal within the access area
right,
is the removal. The replacement is
as nearly
amount
as possible?
and vicinity removed.
So,
That's, I mean, the best, at some point, I can't pull a rabbit out of the hat, at some point, you either require them in the driveway where you've now taken them out, which is dumb.
no, I think
Or-
that's.
No, and that's not,
Yeah,
we know that's not the intention.
Right.
We're not making it a slalom course for,
right.
this. Don't give him that headache.
Robert, you still good with your first?
Best I can do that with that is substantially in the amount and vicinity room, giving some flexibility here so that they can, when they do the driveway, they go, hey, here's an area that actually would work for planting trees and letting them do that.
So can you read that one more time?
Sure, to my seashell, replace trees removed as part of the construction of the driveway within the access area, comma, substantially in the amount and vicinity removed.
Okay, Rob, you're good with that still? And Amanda, you're good?
Yes.
And all those in favor?
Hi.
Any opposed? With attitude. All right, well, thank you, and thank you very much. Can we meet up at the wedding time? I appreciate it.
I got a point, it's like little trees, like fruit trees or.
Yeah, they'll do it.
Something, lemons, something that's dry, something that will really dry. That's fine. Very good.
Well, thank you.
Back.
Scott.
Mr. Scott, I've got the signed version that you and your wife signed, which I appreciate. The original is what the county clerk recorder is gonna demand from us. Do you physically have that, or does your?
Probably in my office in Denver.
Okay. If you could just arrange to get it up here to the town clerk or Kasia, I'll make sure that we arrange for signature by Police Treasurer and Clerk and reporting.
Very good.
Oh, my God, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Scott, very much. We appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, Doug.
So next up is the order request for potable water system assessment, easy for me to say. And then Dennis is gonna be speaking to that very quickly, so we can make a motion on that.
Thank you. The board at their last meeting, Haley
Right.
Aldrich made a presentation that had the results of phase one of the assessment that they were hired to do. That information was, focused on capacity issues with our water system. And they explained what the next steps would be in the process, and you're seeing, Ryan has solicited their cost estimates for that. Today, I'll point to a couple of important notes in the proposal. Task one will be the modeling development, which will mean that they'll put together the formulas where they can plug in the information that they have, and that will then be used for task two, running the simulations on what different capacities of the water will be used in different developments or different water supply numbers. Also, on the page 43 of your packet, you'll see at the top is Haley's projected schedule. The total is 9 weeks, broken up into the first part of 4 weeks and the second part 5 weeks. Talking with Ryan today, he intends to push them to try to complete this work before the 9 weeks. But that is what is in the proposal. And then on that same page, you can see that the cost estimate that Haley's provided is $31,600. Together with what was spent on the previous phase, it still falls within the board budget. Angie, can you remind me what the budget was for that?
I believe it's 75,000.
Okay. So we are recommending that you approve this evening so that Haley and Aldrich can continue to move forward with this work that they've been doing on the town's water system. And as a reminder, this is extremely important for the town to complete so that we have a snapshot and a very good idea of what new developments we can afford to invest in going forward without having to invest in our water system. Or if we do invest in our water system, what that cost could be and what that cost will be passed on to future developers.
So the simulations will include the future lakeside flats and the development across the street?
Yes.
Yes, the ones that are already approved, basically near approval. They will also include alternatives to the system to accommodate new developments and what those cost estimates might be within those alternatives so that you can, for example, we talked about a development fee for the next phase of another project. And then the developer would have to pay that fee to make that development happen.
I saw that, oh, go ahead.
So when we met with Creighton, it seemed like they didn't have all the water rights and to develop, fully develop phase three. Is that mean we'll have to wait that developer will have to wait until we get these results before anything can be approved over there?
The water rights are with the county. This is water infrastructure, which is different. It's capacity, not rights to the actual usage of the water.
He had a certain amount of taps left over, and it was a small amount that he was hoping to apply to phase three. However, I think the potential development across the street is still considered the current phase. That's phase two, even though we haven't seen plans and we recently or still need to run the lines to that.
Right.
That, I believe, is still in the phase that's being built out now.
And is currently approved, yeah.
As far as the water goes, you know, we don't have any building.
Right, no, I mean, as far as the water being allocated to that, and that's part of the,
Yeah,
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 that's what I
there's
thought
X amount
too.
of taps that they purchased at the beginning of the subdivision development.
right.
And they are building more units than they had originally forecasted, so they will have to purchase additional taps from us. So if that's the question you're asking, we do something to work that out, that's not. So that's a fee, it's a tap development fee.
But no, because our water supply won't Well,
Well,
supply those
for all-
additional 10 in phase three, the phase
Right.
that they haven't gotten to yet. We don't have enough
Yeah.
supply and pressure for them to move on to a complete phase three is the way.
That's the way he mentioned
Yeah.
it when we had lunch, is that
Ryan's presentation was that phase three, there is capacity for that, and then we should stop, including 1999 Argentine.
What Haley said in that presentation was, with phase three completed, you'll be right at the max. That's it.
Yeah.
And so to go beyond that, you're going to have to do something to the water system to accommodate that, and it will more than likely be a pressure system. And there'll be a cost of, I wanna say it was $1.6 million or in that vicinity. That number is gonna have to be paid by the developer that comes along. Maybe it's a phase four of something, or maybe it's a brand new development. That's what this modeling is gonna determine, what that new capacity will be and what those alternatives will be required to make that happen. But right now, it's my understanding from Haley in their report that everything that Bighorn has planned has been considered in their capacity report to this point, which takes us right up to the top.
and that's even on the other side of the street, that piece.
Yes.
Wait, so,
I didn't feel like that was
no,
from Creighton's mouth, they had that.
what do we call it, what are we calling the part, let's put a number on it, I don't care what number it is right now, but let's put a number on it. What phase, numeric phase, are we saying that they're finishing those 5 buildings? What is that? Is that phase 2? In my mind, that's phase 2.
That's what I thought.
Sure, we call it phase one of Lakeview Flats, but it's
Okay.
phase two.
Well, because the original townhomes,
There was the apartments, the
apartments.
townhomes, the hotel, the brewery. Now we're on the condos.
right, but so the original proposal had far less units than what is potentially being proposed for the rest of that property, even with possible green space, which is a whole nother subject. So when they finish the 5 buildings that they're working on now, and the one across the street, and jump in and correct me.
Yeah, he said he didn't think he had enough.
Because that
It
was
is
the
tapped,
past.
but I didn't think there was capacity.
That
Right,
was prior to the Haley Aldrich report being released, when we met, are you talking about the meeting at Cabin Creek that we had in Creighton? That was before Ryan had any real strong numbers from the Haley Aldrich report, so the report where they came, the last board of selectmen meeting. They said
that isn't
that
the right.
phase 3, which they have that utility plan right now, and Ryan is informed of 1999 Argentine as well. Which those plans are also, technically, they have a building permit from a couple of years ago that was submitted, but.
Those
it
expired.
Right, yeah, so,
I'm just
Ryan-
concerned we're not stuck with the 1.6
Well, yeah.
to get all
I'm
this
kind of
built
wondering
out.
if maybe that last phase ought to have a caveat. In the sense that, because if you've got a study that has it right up to the, that, we're right at the limit, and they build that, it sounds like. That there's no wiggle room there, and I think we're probably gonna be calling our pants down.
Yeah, we gotta start accounting for it now, we shouldn't wait till last minute, not saying.
I think, can I ask a clarifying question, and I apologize, because I'm late to a lot of this, because so much of this was done ahead of me. So we have the different phases, obviously, of the developments that are happening down there, but then we have the model simulations that we're voting on tonight.
Right.
And so. Does the vote on the model simulation impact that's it, so, cause there's conflicting information, we have some saying that it does or does not impact, is that the issue that we're trying to get to the bottom of, because I'm honestly not.
I'm
clear.
all for this, but I would like to see all this build out before they start pouring foundations to know that we have some wiggle room and that we're not
What if,
committing to do a pressurized system with $1.6 million, so we can make sure that all that development that isn't.
Yeah,
You have built,
Mhm.
that we're not stuck with it, and I would feel much more comfortable if seeing these numbers. And how that works out, and asking some questions from Brian and Haley.
So before,
No, we
no,
have
no, this,
commitments.
this train needs to be the
That's what I'm
station.
going, is this commitment here has to exist.
Yes.
Because we can't, so.
Right.
And it's in
So
budget and all that.
Definitely
Right.
understand the concerns, but I think that's, I'm disconnected on what that has to do with this specific.
They are connected, but they're not connected tonight, so let me just respond this way. The board will approve this, so Haley can keep going on their work, which is vital information.
Absolutely.
The staff will follow up with the board with a report on where we stand on those developments, so you can see where we are today.
Love it.
And that will cover exactly what your questions are on
Yes.
water.
Yes.
We can move on this.
That's what I'm saying,
Absolutely.
that's why I was, I'm like, I
Okay,
felt like the cart was
Yeah.
like way down by the lake.
I'm just making sure the questions are asked now
Sure,
before we
thank you.
start pouring
absolutely
foundation.
important.
This is very important, extremely important. It's the future of the town, really. So if there's a mistake made here and we can't afford new development and you're stymied because the price tag for a new multifamily unit project is $2 million and it's on our bill, it's not gonna happen. So,
Right.
yeah, I hear you.
Right, exactly.
Yes.
Yep, very good. So, any further discussion, or we feel like we can someone make a motion then to,
I'll do that. I move to continue the partnership with Haley Aldrich to conduct phase. Is it 2 and 3 of the water capacity study?
second? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, that passes.
Dennis, thank you for that follow-up.
Yeah, absolutely. No, really appreciate that. We're covering all the bases because we don't want to feel like we left something hanging or unasked. Tracy, very happy to have you here, and Tracy's going to speak to us about the Mayor's and Commissioners Youth Award. And, you're on.
All right,
Thank you.
awesome. I'll make this really easy for you guys. This will be the easiest part of the meeting. My name's Tracy Croy. I work for Clear County, I've been in Clear County now for 5 years. The Department of Human Services puts on a Mayor's and Commissioners Youth Award that awards 7 to 8 youth that have overcome adversity and that would not usually be acknowledged or awarded in other capacities of such. This year we did have our dinner. We had eight nominees. We had one from Dumont, one from Empire, 2 from Floydville, and 4 from Idaho Springs. The county gives us a $10,000 budget, and then the generosity of the cities and towns amongst our county here also pitched in. We have greatly appreciated the $500 that Georgetown has donated in the past. It is my understanding that it has been in the budget, so I'm not sure where we stand there. These children are awarded with a dinner. They get a computer, a 1-year subscription to Microsoft 360. They get a $500 scholarship. I don't really want to call it a scholarship. They can utilize it towards club sports. They can utilize it towards driver's ed, tools, uniforms, whatever it may be. We want to encourage these children to keep going in the positive direction that they've gone. And each story is very diverse from one or the other. And the glow on their face and the awards and the dinner is absolutely beautiful each year. So I'm just here to ask if Georgetown will be willing to donate any amounts of, again, the sugar towards the Mayor's and Commissioners Board.
And I just want to mention that I was at that dinner. I had the pleasure of being at that dinner last week, and it was absolutely fabulous. These wonderful kids, each one was so appreciative of everything they got. Listening to their stories was incredible. It was really, really good. It was very well done. So thank you for that.
500 or 1,000, because I know it's gone back and forth.
Is it, I mean,
I thought it was 500
Do you know
the
that
last time.
in that budget? General?
Should it has been in the budget over the course of the past year.
We just been trying to figure out how much.
1,000 1 year because of COVID, so we missed 1 year. I know last year was 500.
I just want to try to figure out where it's been located in the said budget, so we could probably give you some money.
It's kind of just.
You know, this paper stuff isn't working for you, Amanda.
I know.
She always has her laptop.
Does anybody have any questions? Majority of you are
Any comment?
Take her off.
My youngest daughter was a recipient. I really appreciated that.
Yeah, it's a wonderful program. Mhm. So it was $500, I believe you had said last year.
Yes.
So there could be board discussion whether you want, the board wants to approve giving more than that or stay at the 500. How do we feel about
Well,
that?
we would stay at the budgeted amount, but I know there has been a fluctuation in the past, and I know in the way past, we had some members who actually made a personal donation to make it a different amount. That was
Which is nice
years
too.
ago, years and years and years. Several police judges in the past. But I just don't wanna limit it at 5 if we budgeted more than that.
Yeah, right.
Then we have to make you come back. No, I'm kidding.
No, it's an amazing program. I feel hard to appreciate.
So we could just approve the donation
Yeah.
as with the amount not to exceed what the budgeted
Yeah, there
allocation
you go.
was.
With that is
Sure.
what Mary said.
Yeah. So I move to approve the donation to the Clear Creek County Mayors and Commissioners Youth Award as included in the 2025 town budget.
Second.
Second, I mean.
Alright.
You're like.
Okay, third, all those in favor?
Uh,
Any opposed? Thank you, Tracy. Great work on that program.
Time.
Thank you. Thank you for your patience and waiting.
Glad I could make it easy.
Oh, no, thank you, you did. So next up is the request for Georgetown to participate in the William G. Pomeroy Foundation Hometown Charities Market, which is Kevin Kuhar is here to talk to us about that.
Yes, I'm Kevin Kuhar, I live at 91 Rose Street. And with the approach of the sesquicentennial, I had practicing state of Colorado in 2026, many organizations are planning meaningful civic improvements. I've become aware of the William G. Pomeroy Foundation, that they have two missions. One is to help blood cancer patients. William G. Pomeroy died of blood cancer, but he was also interested in roadside historical markers. And so for, I would say easily 10 years, I've been doing some research on Chinese history, not only here in Georgetown, but in Clear Creek County as part of my job across the street at Hotel de Paris Museum. As much of that, as much as 80% of that property is Chinese constructed. So as maybe the last tangible link to this history, the staff, myself, the National Society of the Colonial Names of America, and the National Trust for Historic Preservation feel that it is our obligation to that Chinese community, whether they're here or in the past, to sort of put focus on this work and on their presence and their contributions to Georgetown and its success over the years. And so there's no cost for this historical marker. It's an aluminum marker on a 7-foot pole. But the requirements are that it be on public land, not on private land. Since Hotel de Paris Museum is private land, we're not eligible to be an applicant, but the town of Georgetown would be. And I think it would not only draw attention to the 150th anniversary of the state of Colorado next year, it could get some positive attention for the town of Georgetown. Could also develop audiences that have been forgotten about or ignored, the Asian community. And so what I'm proposing is to work with the town of Georgetown. If it agrees to be the organization credited on the sign, someone has to be credited. I would like to work with town staff in order to get this project done. The costs would be things like personnel, time, and materials. So when it comes to personnel, there's an online application to go after a marker. The date that it will go live will be October 6th, so it's off in the future a little bit. And I think that's a good date because the plan is to install it in 2026. But Keisha Hart and I have talked about this and she has agreed to be my advocate for this project if the town agrees. And she would be the one whose name goes on the application as the representative of the town of Georgetown. So let me just go over the basic terms to see if it's agreeable to folks. Agree to participate in its hometown heritage marker grant program. Town of Georgetown would be credited on the bottom of the historical marker. And then at the top would be an outline of the state of Colorado. Name, the town of Georgetown would name me as an authorized representative for the grant or whatever title you want. It could just be, you know, concerned citizen, but I'd like to drive this forward with the help of staff. She would be the advocate and the online forms, I would sit down with Kasia and we would work on these together. I've looked at the application, it's fairly straightforward for a grant. But she would have to be the one who gives the letter of intent for the grant application. They want a high visibility location, of course. And so they will require GPS coordinates. It needs to be public land, accessible to able and disabled people. And if near a road, a low rate of speed, which would be 45 miles per hour or less. And so that would be almost everywhere in Georgetown except on the Chase.
Or a regular day in traffic.
Submit a letter granting permission for the marker to the Pomeroy Foundation, so they know that you're aware that this is happening. And then it comes into sort of the town's arena here. Kasia, it happens to also be the liaison to Design and Review Commission, and they're the commission that reviews signage, and so I would work with her and have them review this. Personnel, I would ask our town administrator Dennis to assign road and bridge staff to install the marker. It's a relatively small kind of monument. And so it would be, you know, digging the hole, putting in gravel and concrete, installing it. So that would be, I would guess, road and bridge, some incidental materials like gravel and concrete. And then I would like for the events coordinator, Jess Jones, to promote this achievement for the town, get some press on this for everybody. And so this would be a civic improvement is how I'm looking at it. In your packet, on page 2, there are some dates, so we're way ahead of the curve. They do have 2 grant application dates a year. So the other one was right before this meeting, so we missed that one, which is fine, you still have time, so I'm looking at October 6th. And the proposed marker text is going to be a headline and then 5 lines of text and then the credit line. And so what I'm proposing is Chinese citizens as the headline. And then you have to put it into some sort of time context. So 19th century immigrants helped Georgetown thrive by working in laundries, mines, and construction, and hotels and restaurants. And that is, that information is based on the research I've been doing for the last decade on the Chinese in Colorado, or in Georgetown specifically. And part of this application, you have to name your primary sources for this, and I have all of that in my possession. That's why I want to be involved with this project, because I will have to provide that to Kasia when it comes time to fill out the online application for the grant. So that is what I'm proposing.
Thank you, Kevin.
Any questions for me?
Any questions from the board? And where would you like to see it? What
Well-
sites are you proposing?
I talked to Dennis and he asked me to leave it sort of open at this point. I have one location. So to sort of describe where this area is, it's all in the historic commercial district. I've identified 7 or 8 locations of laundries, 1 restaurant, places where Chinese laundry worker live on town property. He rented a room of a Po's house, which doesn't exist anymore. And then an area of town near the county offices that was called Chinatown. And so, it's about 3 blocks wide, so from 5th Street to 7th Street wide, and from Hotel de Paris to Chinatown. And so it's all pretty flat and walkable. My deliverable on this, I'm going to launch a Chinese walking tour next year, sponsored by Hotel de Paris Museum. My hope is to do this walking tour for free once a month in order to just put my research to some sort of use. Right now, you can see the locations that I've identified on historypin.org. Go to historypin.org and type in Georgetown, Colorado, or sites of Chinese history in Georgetown, Colorado. You'll pull up my pins. I have, I think 23 pins already.
History pins?
Historypin.org.
We're gonna launch
You
it
know
for
what?
Chinese New Year.
They celebrated Chinese New Year, yeah.
You know, not just trying to be foot thing, but you know, would it be a good idea to get like an Asian themed food trucking involved?
Well, I'm building relationships with Asian organizations and with, Asian colleagues. So most people think of me just sort of working here with my tour guides, but I actually have colleagues across the nation and many of them in Washington, DC. So Michael Yi and Di Gao are my two Chinese colleagues in Washington, DC, and they're reviewing all of my content for accuracy and also for blind spots. Okay, so as a non-Asian, I don't want to, overlook something that might be incorrect or insulting or, right. And so, and then I've also, built a relationship with a group called CAPU, and that's Colorado Asian Pacific United. And they're the folks who are reestablishing the boundaries of Chinatown in Denver that was destroyed in a race riot in 1880. And so they're looking at all of my pins to make sure things are accurate. Sure. And portraying the truth. And a lot of people call me a storyteller, but I prefer to call myself a truth teller. And it's the hard stuff and the good stuff. And so when this gets cast in aluminum, it needs to be correct. And it needs to be reviewed. And so I'm already working on that.
So when the application is actually filed is when you're going to have to designate a location?
Yeah,
or do
so
we-
back to location. Okay,
Because
so,
it has to be accessible, and that's my
Yes.
concern, because
okay.
that's.
So 3 blocks wide from basically where we are to Middle Clear Creek, okay? Almost smack dab in the middle is Strauss Park. I don't want to interrupt their design by adding a monument to that project. But in that same block, so if you know where Alpine Hose is, there's a parking lot right there. There were 2 Chinese laundries where that parking lot, or where that basketball court is today. 2 Chinese laundries right there, okay? And so that's on the south side of Fifth Street. On the north side of Fifth Street, there are 6 ornamental trees. They're cherry trees, I think. And there used to be 7. The center one died, so it's 3 trees, gap, 3 trees. It's public owned, it's along the sidewalk, it's 15 miles an hour. The sign, the marker is 2-sided. And so my thought was for it to face Fifth Street. And then the other side would face the parking lot next to Strauss Park, so it could be read from both sides.
Okay.
There is no sidewalk there at this point. I'm not asking for that kind of improvement. But there is potential for a sidewalk that would allow disabled access at some point. Okay. And so it seems to fit the checklist that Pomeroy wants for it to be public and readable. If it is near a road that is 45 miles an hour or faster, there needs to be a vehicle pull-up and parking space. But I don't think we need to deal with that. I think it'd be better to have it in a pedestrian area. And my hope is if the town agrees to support this project, that when we do the unveiling next year, I would then, as part of that festivity, we'll call it, launch the walking tour, the inaugural walking tour at that point, as we unveil, celebrate, and do the walking tour and launch that.
It would be apropos if it was possibly in May, because that is Asian Pacific Heritage Month.
There we go. Okay, so that is what I'm proposing, so,
Thank you.
okay.
Any further questions for Kevin? Are we ready to make a motion to support? Is somebody going to do that?
We don't, we have. So I'll make a motion to support, or is there one in here?
The William G. Pomeroy Foundation, that one?
Am I missing the actual?
No, I was trying to
No,
read one.
there's
Okay,
no.
Motion to, for the town of Georgetown to support and participate in the William G. Pomeroy Foundation Hometown Heritage Marker Grant Program that includes staff support.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, that passes. Kevin, thank you so much. We're really grateful for the work that you're doing.
Thank you, I really appreciate it.
Yes, absolutely. So next up is a public hearing in consideration of second reading on ordinance number 2, the mobile food vendor. Is there a specific process for reading the ordinance here that I have to go through? No.
No, other than just opening a public hearing.
So we're opening the public hearing.
Yep.
David Kajak, would you like to make any comments on this as part of the public?
You just have to say the time.
Do we have anybody online? Is there anybody?
You wanna say this?
No, no one's online. Okay, I want to say the time. And the time is 7:31. Thank you. So we have opened the public hearing in consideration of the ordinance number 2. Any questions or discussion from the board on this? Did I mess something up?
No, I was told the public hearing was.
Oh, we'll close the public hearing, sorry.
Close public hearing and motions in order.
Okay, and the motion's in order. So I did have some questions on this. I wondered where, there's an item under B definitions on page 1, there's within a half hour, these food trucks have to be moved within a half hour. And I was just curious where the half hour came from. Is that because it's gotta be super mobile, I'm assuming, and it can't be. Can't take an hour
That
to just
existed
move it?
because, so I helped write the first
Okay,
really bad ordinance, like it wasn't a good ordinance.
yeah,
It's not my best work, I think it was the first one I've ever worked on.
that's fine.
If there was like a fire or there was like an emergency
Okay.
that we had to evacuate the area.
That'd be
The
good.
food trucks are sometimes very clunky and not
Yeah.
very nimble.
They're more towable than drivable.
Yes, and so, the expectation was
Yeah.
that there was somebody that came through and said, we have to vacate this area. And then on the other side of it too, was that when the road needed to reopen, they needed to be able to move within a half an hour of
Yeah.
the road reopening. So
Okay,
they couldn't just be like, the event ends at 5, they can't just like stay in
Till
their
7 or
spot to
something.
7 and just exist, they have to mosey.
thank you.
You're welcome.
And my last question had to do with, where are the locations going to be for the food trucks? Are they gonna be pre-located? Is it just gonna be what, when you show up, we figure out where you're gonna go, or how does that work?
So when we revise the ordinance, maybe you wanna take this one.
Well, so that the town administrator has the ability to designate
Okay,
where they're going to be, and there's an application time frame where they don't just show up today and get ready to set up shop, they have to apply. Dennis or his designee will review that and say, this is where you're going to be because of this purpose or whatever. So we aren't specifying
yeah,
a
like here,
very
here,
discrete, yeah, position, because we need to have the flexibility depending on events, I mean, just general
Sure.
activity. Again, one of the ideas to expand and to amend this food truck ordinance. We recognize the fact that Sixth Street has lost some restaurants.
yeah,
And we're trying to revitalize Sixth Street as much as possible, not only to fill in those gaps, during the upcoming summer season or any season.
right,
But when we first created the food truck ordinance, it was just a different climate.
Sure.
And it has changed and, we've added a lot even down by the lake. And so we're trying to take in, all possibilities, but
it rests with Dennis.
bottom line, yeah.
The concern
He's the
was,
guy.
yeah,
Okay.
that what we didn't want was just somebody to like park in front of a brick and mortar.
Exactly.
And push, further brick and mortar. That, because they just like pop in. And so, and there was concern from the brick and mortars in the historic district that because the historic district was tight, that they they were going to be potentially impacted.
Okay,
I think that the town administrator has thoughtful judgment in this regard, and if it's that serious, then, you know, the operator who has concern can take it up, or shop owner too. We don't wanna block viewpoints of retail spaces. We want the food trucks to be
thank you.
in a position that they're welcoming and accessible, but they're also not impacting
Right, for our local people,
our local people.
yeah, which is great.
That added to the value.
Exactly, they're add, value add.
There's never not enough food. They all want to eat. And they will eat multiple times in multiple places in a visit. It doesn't mean that they don't just like go get one thing and then give up. They get ice cream, they get coffee, they get
Right.
treats, the kids wanna sit down, it starts to rain, there's a lot of reasons, so it's a good thing.
Okay, I don't have any more questions. Anybody else have any questions?
No, when this was passed, I mean, Mary was right. There was, a lot of opposition. And
It was
about
a-
where to park them and all that. But I think having that flexibility and the fact that they will be mobile, if,
I think it makes sense.
And viewers,
I just hope someone takes us up on it.
people
Right, I think it's
who
great.
have restaurants are not, as I know, an inexpensive endeavor. And so if you, I mean, you put a lot into it, and so I respected those business owners at the time, I mean, you're pushing into seven figures in most cases.
Right,
To own and operate a restaurant, like by the time you're done with your whole investment. So of course they don't want
Yep.
Joe's Burgers popping up and taking away their revenue. It makes sense, but we can manage it.
well, thank you. So are we ready to make a motion? And the wording is here.
That's,
I'll move to approve ordinance 2, series 2025, an ordinance of the town of Georgetown, Colorado, amending the town's mobile food vendor code on second reading.
Second,
Second.
all in favor? Any opposed? Thank you, that is great. Next on the agenda is the Sixth Street one-way project.
A quick note, in
Yeah.
the packet, your materials, the next set of materials is for the utility billing software.
Right.
And the Sixth Street.
It was in the back, right,
Yeah,
you just got a
so-
different order. So if we go by the order of the agenda, then the Sixth Street packet will be in the back of your packet. And Dennis, did you want to speak to this? Oh, okay, good, that sounds good.
The board referred this request from the Business Promotions Commission at its last meeting so that we could have some loose ends with regard to traffic analysis, safety, and then answer some of the questions relative to the 4 points that the commission is recommending. They were, number 1 was the conversion to one-way on Sixth Street from Argentine to Griffith. The second item was converting to 3-hour parking limitations on Fifth and Sixth Street. The third item was to reconfigure parking to grab some greater capacity there. And then fourth was to implement the use of barriers up at the area around where the loop comes down to connect with
For the
Sixth
train,
Street.
yeah.
So I engaged the services of a traffic engineering firm to help with this. And I will admit that our approach was very quick so that we could accommodate Memorial Day. So they couldn't do a full-blown analysis, but what I asked them to do was to review the proposal, look at the area, and identify some red flags for me before we implemented Memorial Day so that we didn't go in blind and run into some problems. The second thing I asked them to do is do an assessment on what our signage requirements were going to be and where they were going to be. And so what they agreed to give me was their recommendations on these 4 points. And so I am recommending that the board this evening approve item number 1, the conversion to one-way as presented by the commission. They also approve item number 2, the conversion to the 3-hour parking limitations on Fifth and Sixth Street. And the engineer noted that this will not have an impact on traffic flow or their traffic analysis, so it was not something that they would be concerned about at all. Item 3, I have recommended that the board not approve item 3, parking reconfiguration this evening. And the reason behind that is because we see parking in the downtown area as something that needs a holistic approach on a strategy. And so to pick one piece of parking from the downtown and make a reconfiguration now without that holistic approach would be kind of a mistake at this point. And so Kasia and I have been talking about working on a strategic plan for the downtown for parking as a whole. And this would be one piece of that. So instead of approving that little part tonight, we're recommending that you hold off on item 3 until that can be incorporated into a total parking plan. That would come before the board. And then approve item number 4, the use of the barriers over by the loop, because we see that in the traffic engineers read that we would have to do that anyway to accommodate the conversion. So also as part of the traffic engineering work that I've asked them to do is to monitor how this works throughout the entire summer, so beyond Memorial Day. So that includes doing traffic counts throughout the summer to see what the traffic movements are going to be with this new configuration. So do we need to look at 7th Street as a possible one-way as well to accommodate traffic flow? Do we need to look at limiting access from some of the cross streets? All of this, we think, will flesh out over the summer as we have real data to use for a final report for your consideration in the fall. And what that means is you'll have a report that says, it's working great, here are some minor tweaks, or it's not working so well, we have to do some real major changes here to make this one-way work. And so this evening, I'm recommending that the board approve 1, 2, and 4 of the recommendation from the Business Promotions Commission.
And I just want to point out in number 2, though, it also includes Taos and Rose Streets.
Sure.
Just so everyone is aware of that.
What was the feedback like from stakeholders on this?
Well, I went up and down 6th Street and introduced myself to a number of them, and they wanted to talk to me about a lot of other things besides this. But I also asked, I handed out my contact information, and the count was 5-2 in favor. And I also heard about a lot of other issues, but we don't need to go through those this evening.
But that was just on 6th Street, so that
Just
wasn't
6th
Towns, that wasn't
yes.
Rose, that wasn't Fifth.
So I started at Town Hall, I went all the way up to the post office. Doreen at the post office was gracious enough to let me lay a lot of handouts there on the desk inside. Then I went across the street and came right back down to Town Hall. So if you consider that the membership of the Promotions Commission is a good number of those, I'd say that in all, there was good support for the conversion.
And again, this was brought up to business promotion over a year ago from a business mixer where we invited the merchants and everyone in. It was actually a suggestion that the Loop Railroad was making to the town to offer their customers to, have more access, or to, force them to have more access. And when it's been talked about at BPC over and over again, the majority of the, the 6th Street merchants, and I say that in a broad sense, it includes, the offshoots on Rose and Taos, have been in favor of this. So
It's been on the radar for a long time, and I think that the bigger pushback we're going to have is from people who don't pay attention and then just wake up and they're like, wait, why can't I go west?
So everyone here, please drive very carefully once this is implemented, because we will have those who.
I will add a couple more things. I talked to Sheriff Matt and Eric Rubin over at the Sheriff's Department. The only thing that they are asking that the engineer take a look at after Memorial Day is as they exit their parking lot, they would prefer to go left.
They still can.
On 6th Street up to Brownell and out. That's the only thing that they brought up to me.
And they still can with this proposal. That little stretch in front of the post office
It's going to stay 2-way.
is still 2-way. That's what I thought. Okay,
It
so
starts-
that does allow for that parking lot.
But does it allow? Cause I thought the whole thing was to get them past the post office.
Well, it doesn't allow people coming, if you come over now, or you're coming down from the train,
Right.
you would have to.
So people
come
who are
down
going to Cardinal West, right?
Yeah, that's, oh,
This is east, I'm sorry,
That's
that's
east.
east, yeah, sorry.
How long have you
South,
been-
north, east, it's, because of the I-70 orientation. People who are going east have to stay going east.
yeah.
Yeah.
People who are turns.
If you're coming down the loop, you can't turn left back on the front now, so you have to go to Argentine, right?
No, you have to go all the way to Griffin.
Well, technically you could turn on Argentine, which is the post office street, and so.
What's this one? That's the only thing.
That's one of those things that as it functions,
Right.
there could be a modification to make no left turn there as well, if you want the whole corridor to ride. Then I also wanted to say, I talked with Chief Kelly, and he's totally fine with it, and he's confident that his rigs can make the turns that they need. I talked to Sammy over at the school, and she's confident that they're unaffected, so she's fine with that. There was one other thing. No, I guess that's it for now.
And it's $9,000 is the cost?
That was the other thing. Thank you, Georgia. Scooter went out and did an inventory of the signs that was gonna be needed. He counted 49 signs just for the one-way conversion, but then when you take into account the parking and
Was it Tokyo? That's like an insane amount of signs.
so then the signs were sent off to the engineer and they're paring them down at the moment. So we're trying to be prepared for Monday. So Monday's the kickoff for Scooter and his team to start installing signs.
But we're not gonna have 49 signs, are we?
48.
Or if there was an option
Okay.
5,
48.
I'd show it to you this evening. But I do wanna say that there's gonna have to be some work in that corridor after this to pair signs out. I did notice when we were doing the
They're
inventory,
terrible.
that there are some legacy signs that should be removed, maybe some can be combined. But to get better preserving the historic character of that corridor, signage needs to be looked at seriously. And hopefully we'll get to a point where we can cut the number down and even maybe co-locate some signage on the same sign with some historic character added. to
That
the
would be
sign.
nice, yeah.
So that's another future project, but it's not something that's off of our radar screen.
So it's 9,000, not the
9,000.
4,500 plus the 9.
Correct.
Okay.
And that's in the budget, the road and bridge to do that?
We have money budgeted to do road improvements and signage and all that, and so KJ and I looked through the budget, and yes, we do have funds for that.
And then to do that traffic and engineering study? Is that, do you know what that's gonna cost?
That was, I wanna say that was $8,000, and yes, we do have the funds for that as well.
We're gonna make you stand there with a clicker.
Yeah, the signs, yeah, that's what I needed.
Well, the signs on the cars, right? Yeah.
Well, prematurely on the I appreciate the energy and efficiency that staff approached this to put this together. I mean, it was important that, you know, if we kicked off, I think it's easier on the community if there's a little bit of grace time before we're mobbed with summer traffic, or at least some of the people to get used to it, you know?
That's right.
So thank you for putting in the rapid response.
You answered
rapid
a lot of my
response speed.
questions that came up with
Yeah.
the last time.
Yeah, that
Well,
was very
well
good.
done, thank you.
So do I hear a motion? There's a staff recommendation on the first page, which I think could be made into a motion. Does somebody want to make that?
So I'll make a motion that the Board of Selectmen accept the proposal from the Business Promotion Commission to convert Sixth Street to one-way from Argentine to Griffith, including implementation of parking restrictions on Fifth, Sixth, Taos and Rose Street as outlined in item 2, and traffic management as outlined in item 4, as detailed in the BPC proposal.
Second,
Second.
those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, that was great. Now, the next item on the agenda is the formal acceptance of park surveys, which again is gonna be at the back of your packet. And, these were surveys conducted in 2024. So we need to, I'm not really familiar with this, we just literally need to accept these surveys, correct?
Yes, and if you have any questions,
Please,
Stacia is the expert in the room on this.
Great, so any questions for Kasia? On the park surveys?
Pretty straightforward, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's just saying that these are okay. The board is being asked to formally accept these surveys so that the Parks Commission can install fencing to preserve the boundaries.
Do we know what type of fencing?
Split rail fencing, and it will be permeable for people to walk through, but not drive. So sections with gaps, so people can enter at different points along the. And specifically, they're looking at Greenway and Madison.
Is there a maintenance involved?
For the fences,
Yeah.
there will be, yes.
And now so Parks is already, even though we're just accepting the surveys. Parks has already, well, because they already paid for it, so
Yeah.
that was already done, but
Yeah,
the next step of the fencing is already included in there.
They are currently working on an RFP.
Okay. So, but we're just accepting it.
exactly. So is there a motion?
I motion to approve the acceptance of the 2024 park surveys.
Second,
Second,
all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, that's great. And the next item is the revised contract renewal. I don't have any handouts on this, do I?
That one was intended to be pulled from the agenda before it got to you.
Okay, that's right. So I'm sorry, so we needed to amend the agenda to also take this out?
I think at this point, since we did not, you should table it.
Let's table it. Okay, very good.
Table it to the next,
Do we need a motion to table it?
motion, table it to the next meeting would be great.
so moved.
Second.
Was that Mary and,
Amanda.
okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, very good, thank you. And then we'll move on to utility bill software. And this is, let's see, for Keisha to speak to. Thank you.
So the board would ask me to bring back, to revisit the software that we voted on for utility bills. Give more information. I did request that Express Bill pay the implementation fees, which they agreed to. They also lowered our EFT costs from $1 to $2, since the town, one of the proposals is to absorb that fee ourselves, which is up to you if you want to do that or not. I do want to just tell you about an update from today. Hugh is currently taking a training with Cassell, which is our accounting software, and they launched a utility bill software like today. And so if you're interested in me collecting info and letting you know about that, then we can table this and I can let you know more about that. Since it is part of the software that we currently are implementing already. My concern with that is that it is brand new, so there won't be any recommendations from other municipalities. We won't know necessarily how functional it is, but it is part of our existing software. So up to you if you're interested in doing it.
I think I'd like to see Cassell, and I don't wanna drag this out, but we have learned so many opportunities to expand our use of Cassell in the last several months. And even though they're launching this as a new one, it seems to me to make sense if we've got one-stop shopping kind of thing. I know this was gonna take a couple of months to launch anyway. One of the other questions I had thrown out earlier today was just concerned about network security and firewalls and everything, being that Express Pay or any bill pay would be bringing in yet another opportunity for customers to get hacked, the town, I mean, we all hear what's on the news, I don't need to repeat that. But so if we're already using Cassell and have some confidence in their security, and we've already delayed this a couple of months. I mean, why not explore that option?
The security answer.
No, I mean as far as explore the Cassell piece,
Like table it till another time.
so that we can,
I want to remind a couple of things. I think this is exactly the reason why you do send staff to things like this Cassell event that Q is attending. So that he is made aware of new products and systems that we can add to already existing financial platforms and take advantage of those efficiencies. So this is exactly why we want to take advantage. This recommendation that you have before you, this company is an excellent company. They have a great reputation. They have demonstrated an answer to the security question, but I think it's very appropriate to wait on this. They have indicated that they're in no big hurry to get this decided this evening, so to take another month to get Casella in here to do a demo for us and show us what their product could possibly offer us with some pricing and some maintenance costs is even better off for you to make an informed decision on what's available. So I totally support you tabling it, but I also just wanted to point out that sending Q to this is exactly why we are doing this, is so you have this information available to you.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to table?
Second with Rich.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. And now we have police judge reports, which I will pass on. Since a lot of what I was gonna say was already covered, but I would love to go to the selectmen now and see if, we'll start with Amanda.
Sure.
And to see what you have for us.
Selectmen, if you recall, you all had homework on, it was picking your date for SIPs with the selectmen. Rob and I are doing June 12th. So that is a Thursday. Have you picked your SIPs with the selectmen dates, my friends?
And do you know where you're gonna be?
We're gonna be Mount Thomas,
Okay,
so.
I know we hadn't talked, but I talked with Georgia and it seemed to me like we could do something for everybody at the community center and just use different pieces of that. And I don't know if that's possible, but
But the town is planning something next week with the park, with the Bighorn property parks, correct?
Yes, it's on my little task was to read when it's my turn.
Okay, so we'll wait and we can jump in on that. I think. it would
that's
be a
true,
better
because
bang
it's
for our
already
buck.
set up and.
People come, why
Promoted.
not knock that out?
So.
so you're gonna go on the same day as that?
Well, we haven't said that yet
Okay.
because Dennis hasn't
So
presented.
you're waiting, okay.
That makes sense.
Oh, it's in your folder. Right.
If they're gonna come out, they're gonna come out for that.
That's a good point.
I gotta talk to Alex.
The only other thing, I have, and this will be, for an update for our next agenda. Is, if we can discuss the status of our contract with Freestone, which was our PR firm. That was, I believe, tabled or. Yeah, I was absent.
It would have been up, I think, for renewal just prior to our interim leaving
I think,
us.
yeah, I think it was right after our signs out.
And what was the name of it?
So Freestone.
Freestone.
Freestone Strategies, that is the company that we contracted with in November to help us with our messaging. I don't think that we need the premium package anymore, I think we're through the stuff, but I do think they provide a lot of value. They, we had established a PIO policy that we voted on, and a communication pathway that the board was supposed to follow. And then they also were going to do some subsequent media trainings for all of us to kind of teach us how to function. Because, and again, things were spicier then, but I think there is still value because you never know when the.
Absolutely.
Will return.
Spicy.
Mhm.
And it wasn't just training for the
For me.
board and commissions, it was staff wide
Staff
training, so that
Okay.
something isn't
Yes.
said inadvertently.
Yeah.
And then we.
How to say the things that need to be said without saying them in a way that makes it so it's.
So do we need,
Well said.
we need to review that contract?
We
Or
do, so that
okay.
contract, we had a 3-month with them, and so that contract expired at the end of January or February.
And what's the cost to renew?
So their original proposal, we were giving them $1,200 a month.
Okay,
That was a more deluxe
Right.
service. Again, I think we could probably, and I think they're very open to it. Cody and Jim are the founders, and Mary and I have a really strong relationship with them. And
I think
all of
they
us met
proposed-
them. I mean,
Yeah.
all of us came in and met them one-on-one.
which is great, yeah.
And so, yeah, I think that they would be open to understanding what our needs are to be functional for us, but I think it would be wise for us to continue to probably.
So you're gonna pursue that?
Yes, so
Okay,
I'll
great.
pursue it if we could, look at getting it on the agenda. I don't know, Dennis, you might look through emails. There might have been communication in town admin emails that I was not on, because it was more.
I know Greg sent me something about at least the conversation, so I can kind of pin down a date try to forward that
Yeah.
to, because I don't delete emails.
Yeah.
Oopsie, which is why I have 50 million, but anyway, yeah, I'll see what I can forward to you,
Okay.
so that, and then, yeah, it makes sense for you to reach out and get. Cause I believe they proposed something at a lesser cost
They did.
to extend, and it just makes sense for you to start to, you know, to have that conversation, because
See
it's
what
off
the
staff.
need is.
Yeah.
And then my last, is, for board responsibilities, I am attending, Resiliency Coalition tomorrow morning for Clear Creek and Gilpin counties.
Which one?
Economic.
Economic resiliency that you guys made me do,
Yes.
like, went to the bachelor and came back and I was on the commission.
That's what happens. Everybody's in the room. They're complicated.
Right.
Dre, we're to you.
Yeah, we had another meeting at the Clay Creek Regional Housing Authority, the ads out. I think you have what, the end of this week, right, Keisha? For
executive
applying,
director ad?
executive director, yes, if
Yes.
you know of anybody that is looking. That would
It's
be
doing the
interested-
19th.
that would be interested in filling a position, we're in desperate need. Other than that, we just keep moving forward.
All right, thank you.
I've got.
Okay, and Alex?
That's it, nothing.
All right, perfect. Rich?
That county coalition trying to come up with funding has sent out a survey. Just encourage you all to answer that survey about possibilities of either, basically different possibilities of raising taxes to help fund emergency services.
I was slightly insulted by one of the paragraphs in that survey.
What was that?
The one about how the sheriff's office is covering us, they made it, it was a little more punitive than I thought it should have been.
I know.
Yeah, I haven't opened the survey, and that we weren't, the coalition wasn't actually as much, the previous survey that we did last fall or whatever, wasn't really consulted as much.
So good.
So
You're.
we'll see what happens with it.
Mary?
Okay, quick little stuff. So remember, Memorial Day weekend kicks off the opening of Georgetown for the summer, so it starts on Friday with the pancake breakfast, Saturday's the borough race and the call to duty. Sunday is Sunday, and Monday, I believe you will be,
I will be doing lots of things.
but aren't you doing some Memorial Day welcome speech?
Yes, I am.
Memorial, so we've got
Yes.
that going on.
Yes.
This Thursday, like day after tomorrow, Thursday, Governor Polis is going to be here at our visitor center. He is signing a bill that has passed to support electric vehicle, substations, charger stations and everything. And he has selected our visitor center because we are the busiest in the state to do the signing. So you are all invited. You should have received.
I did.
invites
I heard
via
something
email.
about
Both of you should have.
They posted, so we can all be there.
4 o'clock as it is now, if I hear any updates, or if you hear any updates on the time, because, he is the
It's
governor.
always flexible.
Or he could be stuck in blasting traffic, so there could be a delay.
Probably okay on a Thursday.
So that's going on. There's a free concert apparently as a shoot off or an offshoot, whatever, from the skate
The
park
skateboard.
fundraiser.
Yeah.
So the free concert is going to be here at Library Stage on May 29th, and they're gonna be, some of the kids are playing music and some of the kids are doing all their cute skate tricks, so.
And that's at the library park, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's all I got until I get to question the town admin and assistant admin on some of these. So, thanks.
Thank you.
Mary, did you think, just for my information, the thing with the governor, what's it for again? The bill does what?
He's signing the bill that was passed in the Senate and the House, State Senate and House, to support additional EV power stations throughout the state.
Okay.
But he's picking the visitor center because we're the busiest visitor center in the state of Colorado.
Okay.
And they
So-
have EV.
And he's probably a lot closer from Denver to here than Denver to Burlington or Denver to Trinidad, I mean, but I don't.
You wouldn't pick the most shocking places.
I received a call and was told that the governor was coming to sign a bill that was prohibiting noise or was advocating for noise reduction from I-70 that was impacting local residents, particularly in Georgetown and other neighboring jurisdictions. So maybe somebody
This is
got
more
that.
EV, well, I suppose electronic vehicles though, electric vehicles.
Okay.
Kind of support
Are
quieter, so like that by itself. Yeah, and electric motorcycles, you know, and. electric
Jack
Jeeps.
drinks.
So anyway, okay.
Okay,
got
thank
it.
Thank you, Jerry. For the town
Uh,
attorney report.
Nothing other than to thank you for, taking action on the Scott easement. I know that's something that is very important to them. It's been a long saga, and I really appreciate the board, hanging in there with me also in your patience, and your support for me in telling you, we've got to do this right. We can't just give this away. There is this federal statute that is not fully appreciated, not by the Scots, not by a lot of people, and I get that. Especially for a piece of property that's honestly kind of marginal in the sense it's not a big open space, it's a
Right.
piece. But the law applies and you guys were really great about supporting me as we followed that trail to the point where the Scots now are able to be able to do it. So thank you for hanging in there. I'm glad it worked out for everybody.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And staff reports, we can start with Bridget, town clerk.
Sure, just a couple of things, working with Dennis and Georgia on a new agenda procedure schedule to get the agenda put together a little bit earlier, is our hope. Get it sent to you guys by Thursday rather than Friday is the goal. So we're trialing a new schedule for that, and the biggest thing that you guys should know is if there's anything you want included on the agenda, try to have that in by Monday at the end of the day rather than Wednesday at the end of the day. We're also moving forward, working with Karen Goldman on the election procedural review. So I'm waiting to hear back from her. I'm excited to start working with her. We're completing an audit with the Colorado Bureau of Investigation, so we keep doing background checks for our liquor licensing and employment stuff. And started to make some additional progress on the new lake use fee schedule that will hopefully be able to end by next winter, hopefully earlier than that, but that's all.
Okay, very, thank you, Bridget.
Thank you.
Kate, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Okay, Keisha?
Yeah, and we'll definitely make sure to follow up with Brian regarding the water concerns with the developments that are happening. Those building permits have not been issued, but, the phase 2 of the condos, is supposed to go to DRC early June. If utilities are approved by Ryan and Haley Aldrich, so just you know, they don't even get to go to the DRC until Ryan and Haley Aldrich approve that, so, but I would follow up with them on notes. And then we are working with Mike Davenport to review a potential street vacation for a street that is currently going through a park. So the Parks Commission has requested that we vacate that street. We're reviewing that procedure and we're also seeing if it's appropriate. So
Which part?
18th Street, and that park is
Is that down by the lagoon?
Greenway.
Yeah, it's down by the,
Greenway, yeah, there's a street going through that. It's not a real street, it's just,
I think it's platted as such.
yes.
Yeah, they do.
Oh, yes.
Is that the same one that runs like down the length of the lagoon?
No.
That right away?
18th goes east-west.
Right.
Okay.
Mhm. So anyway, you'll see that at some point in the future, potentially. And then the DRC is also working on creating a local historic register where they, as a commission, could designate buildings as historic outside of the period of significance. And what that would allow buildings to access is tax credits and certain grant applications. So, for example, Buckley Garage, which is built far outside of that period of significance could be designated as a historically relevant structure. And they are working with, the criteria for an application for that is based on the state and the national register, so, you know, pretty stringent as far as what would get approved. But they feel that would be a really cool thing for people to have access to some of those additional funds, especially for our structures that we think are relevant to the town for other reasons outside of our mining period. So they're gonna be presenting that to you probably first or second meeting in June.
Are they gonna talk to some of those owners to see how they feel about being designated as a historical structure?
Sorry, they will not be just saying this is a historic structure. The owners have to apply for that status. Yes.
I did.
No,
I did as a start.
those things can get rather
Yeah.
interesting.
Some buildings with the National Historic Landmark District were surveyed and deemed historically relevant at some point, but for the local register, the owners will have to apply for that status, so it will be totally voluntary on their part.
So then if it becomes a semi-contributing structure or a quasi-contributing structure, there could be limitations on those
Right.
property renovations,
Improvements
exterior
and all that.
renovations.
I just know that those walls are bowing out and they've been.
The Buckley garage,
Yeah,
I'm using that as an example, not because those owners have specifically requested it, but.
But could it also be that they become eligible for grants and things too that they maybe wouldn't be eligible for?
Exactly.
Shouldn't.
So they're eligible for tax credits,
Tax
there's also
credits, yeah.
grants from the for District Colorado, things like that. But yes, they would also then be subject to our regulations.
I was mixing up Cindy's thing from the beginning to this now. I was like, but wait a second, I'm sorry.
No, 50 years is considered an antique, you know, we all at some point readjust our.
as long as I'm
Not
not.
about time.
Okay. 1974. Yeah.
I learned to drive in a 74 Suburban, it feels very.
And then we're working on getting some software updates. The shop is getting a new computer because their computer is so old, it can't even be updated at this point. So, and then we're also getting administrative staff onto like our remote servers. So we're working on getting like Jess and Q and Bridget set up with those things so that they can work remotely. Things like Q's at the conference this week, but he's still able to work on Cassell from the laptop while he's there. So
That's great, because that's the cell training, my gosh, they should be giving them.
Yeah, and then since at the conclusion of our last meeting, I immediately left to go to a conference, the CCCMA conference, which was, I applied for a grant, so the town only paid for my per diem for that, so yay. And a little bit of food, no, that's what per diem is. And that was a great conference. I love that conference so much. It really reaffirms my love for this industry and for the public sector and the great people and work that I get to do, working here. It's much more meaningful than most of all of my other jobs that I've worked in before. Got some great advice and conversations on leaf peeping and policing and workplace culture. All kinds of things. So it's a good conference for me.
Very good, thank you. Is Mike Davenport, he's Community Matters.
Yes.
right? So I think we need to revisit that contract because when we extended, or when we signed that contract initially, it was for a temporary time. Maybe it's, just renews and whatever, but it was a couple of years ago, we kind of did it in a crunch. And if we're continuing to use them, which I know we have been all along. Yeah, obviously they're working within the terms of it, but maybe from a more legal or structured standpoint, we should renew that contract. And then I wanted to ask you, and this kind of comes back to the 6th Street piece too.
Okay.
I know in the fall or even late summer, you and Rick were looking at grants for 6th Street and the curbing and the accessibility. and I know that got put on the back burner. Are we back on track to reviewing those to see when it would be appropriate for us to follow through with some of those grants?
So there's two things with that. One, that funding source is very, very uncertain at this point. So as far as applying for the RMS grant, we're just not sure that we wanna, the funding is even available, and then if it is, if we wanna rely on it. The second thing is that we don't wanna rip up Sixth Street, and I think you guys will agree with this, at the end of summer. If we did that in the early spring, so that we wouldn't be interrupting economic activity down there. And then I said two things. The third thing, Scooter is very interested in fixing the sidewalks. He does have funding available for that, so that might be our next sort of town funded project outside of the grant application. But we are talking to Bob Hamilton, who was helping me with that application to begin with, to work out if there's other funding we can look at, what the timeline's gonna be for that, and then how much of the actual town budget is gonna be allocated to that, so.
Yeah, and I just didn't wanna lose sight of it, even if we're able to apply for it, if it is feasible later in the year, because I think originally you were gonna apply in December or
Yeah, it's a
something.
rolling application.
And so, because I know by the time we were to go out to bid and everything, we would not be at a good time, we'd be building in November again, as we so much like to do. Okay.
I have a couple of questions. One is regarding short-term rentals. And I think I'd like to see, I don't know about the rest of the board, how that collection of the lodging tax is going. How, do we have a waiting list to become a short-term rental? Because I have a feeling we're gonna get a lot of questions about that as they fill up the Lakeview flats. Because some of those folks may wanna go that route and make it goes into income properties. And I just don't know where we're at as far as collections of that 2%.
I think we have to have a conversation about doing, and it hasn't happened in a long time, about a deep dive on the number of the legal short-term rentals that currently are existing in the framework of the town.
And it may be something we have to do in a work session.
Yeah.
But I would think it's something
We have
that
a
we
lot
need to
of
address.
complaints coming in on STRs, like, I mean, I don't know if individually you're getting tapped. I'm getting tapped like frequently where people are like, this and this and this, and, so I think that we do need to probably dedicate a little bit of time in a work session to that and make sure that, because that tax revenue piece, the school, Georgetown Community School is gonna come ask for that money we earmarked for them pretty soon. They're counting on it to supplement their staffing for 25 and 26, which is only, I think we earmarked 10,000 for them. It's not crazy, but they, the sustainability of that bond measure is being tax is not the right word for the tax, but we need to show stakeholders that we are gonna use that money for meaningful purposes, or we're not gonna get more bond measures through. It's gonna be super hard for the fire department to pass another, even though it's a sales tax, they're chasing. There will continue to be distrust in their county, at the county level, that we're not being good stewards of tax funds. And so I think, and that 2% has to pass, because if it doesn't, it's gonna majorly impact, the EMS and fire.
But that's public safety, and we're gonna be looking at, not to digress, but police come into that too.
Yep,
So
100%.
we're gonna be talking about that new extension on that hospitality or the, tax.
Yeah.
for that. But so to back up to STRs, if we're getting complaints here, how do you, town staff, want us to
Respond.
channel to that? I mean, I know.
We have a process for pursuing illegal STRs. We send a warning letter telling them they cannot exist, and if they want to exist, they'll have to apply. Currently, there are spaces available on every board. That's certain buildings are full, but there's space in every ward.
Unless it's somebody who's abetting or has a.
Right,
Has a
right, or doesn't meet the criteria, yes.
Yeah.
So we we send them a warning letter telling them to stop operating or they'll be fined. And if they want to operate as a short-term rental, we assess the eligibility of the address and tell them the process to become a short-term rental. And so we've sent out 4 warning letters this year because people have come to me and said, this is a short-term rental that's operating. I check if they have a permit, they do not, I send them a letter. And I've gotten a couple of callbacks of people saying, no, we've had building projects going on, or like family came and stayed with us and, you know, various things.
Do you cross reference it with like a VRBO or?
Yes, that's how we confirm, that, yeah, so, and that's how we confirm whether or not they followed our advice.
Because if they're advertising,
Stop operating.
sure, they can have all the family they want, but penalty.
Right.
Well, right, I mean, yeah, it's like, if we're not, that lodging tax is so important that we get it, like, it's budgeted, so. But I know Q so we don't belabor this, Q, when I asked about it. Like a month ago, was still trying to get us footing on isolating all the different tax reports that we want, you know, I told him that we wanted. The data for North and South and 11th, like we used to get the breakdowns on lodging. Hospitality, retail, utility, all, you know.
But we need to be part of the solution too, if we're getting
Yeah.
complaints for illegal or potentially illegal short-term rentals, we can just zap you an email or call you up and say.
the address,
And you can do.
I'll go from
Yeah.
there, yeah.
And we shouldn't be deflecting those, we should be part of the solution.
Sending them out the way
Yeah.
they need to go.
So contact Bridget.
We call her the enforcer.
I like that.
Yay.
Right. She's
Q-
got double power here.
And I'm sure, Rich, you're 100% correct, I'm sure with Lakeview Flats, people are gonna.
Oh,
They're gonna wanna-
A lot.
Oh, I know.
They're doing something to pay that extravagant mortgage.
Q has wrapped up a draft of the real estate agent tax reports that you're looking for,
Oh, super.
then he left town.
It's
So when
cool.
he gets back, when he gets back, Paige and I have had time now to review it, and we're gonna finalize it and give it to you, but
Perfect, that's
back to your desire to have a work session, we'll schedule that for the first meeting date in June. Whereas we will give you as much information as we can to set you up for starting that discussion, if it has to go to another work session. I think this is an important thing, because I think it ultimately must set you up for, do you want to ratchet up the regulation on STRs
Right.
here in the town, or do something different? So we'll set that up for June, so you can at least start the discussion.
The June 10th.
I also think this dovetails a little bit into, the code enforcement piece that is really,
10th.
yeah, it's the 10th.
You're right, it's that.
The code enforcement piece, the police committee are gonna have to address, because I think. One of the biggest issues that people are frustrated by is we have 0 code enforcement right now. And we don't have a good means of achieving that, and so I think we have to, you know.
I agree.
Well, to speak to that just quickly, so you know that we are on top of that, that's on our radar screen. We are now investigating code enforcement work order processes, so we can track those reports when they come in. Because it's not good enough just to get a report and then to go knock on the door and say you have to do this. We need to be able to put it in a system so that we can look back over history and see repeat offenders. We can track the resolution, and then we can also have a report for you to see where these code enforcement violations are occurring. Then we also have to decide who's gonna do it. So you're right, it's part of this police discussion, because whatever that outcome is, maybe you don't wanna spend money with a police officer doing code enforcement, which could just be identifying them, sending a letter, and then following up. It may be a staff person we already have here, or it may be hiring another outside firm that we are looking at. We've contacted Matt over at the county annex building, who's doing a GIS thing, and they are looking at a module for code enforcement. So there's a lot of stuff starting to come together, and we are trying to put it all together for code enforcement. But I will go on record tonight saying that we need to get aggressive on this, because there are a lot of properties that have been allowed to just sit. And
Definitely.
there are a couple over here that have stuff just laying on the sidewalk. that we have to get to, and we want to be the gentle enforcers. We don't want to be, you know, telling people, get it taken care of by next Thursday, or we're gonna send you a violation fine and throw you in court. We want ultimately for the community to be cleaned up. We don't want to implement fines. We want cleaning and we want Georgetown to look beautiful. Those are the language kind of thing I want to say, so.
The process.
I just.
We haven't done it for so long, we can't come down that
Exactly.
far,
Yeah.
that fast, yeah.
It can't be that mean that fast. Well, very good. Well, thank you all. This has been very good and Dennis is clicking. I'm sorry, I forgot about you. I was almost gonna adjourn without Dennis's report. I'm so sorry. Let's go.
I've been rehearsing in front of the mirror at home.
Sorry.
First thing I wanted to make notice, I attended the mayor's commission meeting this morning for the first time with Georgia and Kasia. They talked about childcare. It was a really good discussion. It was nice to meet everybody. I got to meet so many people. And so that was fun. I'm working with Cindy on putting together a visioning process for the property that's up along Argentine, between Argentine and the highway, where the helipad is. And so instead of just letting that sit now, I think that's a next step for development. And we want to hear from the people that live around there and what the community thinks is a good vision for that area. So she's going to be organizing a charrette. So be ready for that. A charrette, that's a big way of saying it, like an open house, so.
No, I
Cool stuff like that. Yeah.
We play charades at the
I was in real
charade.
estate, I never did.
That's why we're very good.
Here's the big one. There's a park commission open house for the 20th at Cabin Creek. That is put on by the Parks Commission. I know that's important to our Ward 3 representatives to get some citizen input. It's going to basically focus on what the trail's gonna look like, what the parks are gonna look like as a response from Centennial. They're working on that right now. Jerry and I are working on a maintenance agreement to govern how those properties are gonna be taken care of. Kasia got a great idea. Instead of doing presentations one at a time from the beginning, we're gonna do like an open house scenario where we're gonna have booths. And each person that comes can look and see, you know, big blow ups of diagrams and maps, offer their input, ask questions, so that it doesn't just last 3 hours of going through a schedule of speakers. It's gonna be very flexible. And then Craig has been very gracious in hosting it, and there's gonna be food and drink, and it's gonna be whatever.
So this is May 20th?
May 20th at 6 o'clock.
So would you feel a problem if you wanna jump in on that and be there and call that our selectmen brief?
Yeah, I think that's,
Perfect.
Because it just makes sense, if 5 people or 50 people show up, you know, let's not make them come back and come back and come back.
Great.
So okay, so.
I think that-
I shall give you your sips with a selection.
Thank you, thank you.
then, are you guys gonna do a flyer or something for this? Because I would like to be able to hand stuff to some of the folks that come by my house every day.
Beth is organizing an actual mailer to every postal drop in the town. And so if you want extra.
I could pick up some
mailers,
extra ones.
Yeah, we can get you those and you can pass those
You-
out. Secondly, I have to say thank you to Amanda. It was only a couple weeks ago. You gave me a tour of the school. It seemed like it was an eternity ago.
That doesn't.
But yeah, thank you for that. That was a very informative. We got to meet Sammy and most of the staff over there. That was great. Let's see. Lastly, I owe this guy a lot of thanks because he and I have been working on a lot of projects together. Stuff that he calls me and says, we were working on this before, it was on hold, and now we're picking it back up. So we've got a lot going there. And then the last thing I wanted to say is I went on a lake run the other day for the first time. So I was gonna get used to this elevation and this altitude, which killed me, so I had to rest for a couple of days. But it turned into a fun lake run and into a broken window picture taking task by me. So whenever I saw a sign that was discolored or old or crooked, I took pictures. I went to the Bighorn viewing area and there were signs there that were completely removed or stolen from there. So we have a whole inventory of things now that have to be taken care of. So the reason I bring that up is if you have come across those items in your travels throughout the town, please take a picture, send it to me, or just send me a little text that says, here's where this is at the corner of Rose and something. I need to know about those so that we can get those in the queue and get those ready so we can try to address those. It's not gonna be fast, it's not gonna be overnight. But if we don't know about them, then we can't get them on the radar screen and get somebody working on them, okay? With that, that's it for this evening. I was trying to be quick, thank you.
Kevin,
Cleanup day.
Kevin has a inventory. All of the signs in the, and I think did he do the whole town?
Art, yeah.
No, not Kevin, Kevin Kahart, remember?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, did he do the entire town or was it just the historic district?
Uh,
I don't know, he has an inventory of every single sign and how they don't match. It's a very good inventory. Took him a lot of time, so maybe get that from him. I don't have it anymore.
There
Might have it.
type of street signs, right?
All of those, all the like.
Because I think I heard something in tell me if I'm right or wrong, but they said if you change those street signs, it falls under the CDOT umbrella, and now you can't.
They have to be
Control.
reflective and,
reflective.
Yeah.
You can't control the historic nature of it. So I mean, the street signs, I think, are by design to, sort of look like something that, somebody who's an 1800s miner would have said. This is Ninth Street.
However, if there are restrictions on those types of things, we could at the very least look at some new paint maybe, or some refreshing the numbers and the letters, because sometimes being somebody that doesn't know left from right or up and down, you know that, right?
or north and south and east and
Yes,
west.
correct. When I'm driving and I'm looking for 8th Street and I look and I see O Street and I keep going, and then I have to spin around and everybody wonders why I'm late to a meeting. It's because I think the paint's flaking, so those are things we wanna take care of.
Well, I appreciate you going around the lake and noticing all those things, and we know they've all been like that for a long time, and that's a totally different topic. So I appreciate the fact that you're on that. Was one of those the dry pier that we have in the parking lot sitting over at the lake, as opposed to being on the water in time for summer? And do we have a plan? I hope there's a plan to get us into the water, back to where it belongs.
We talked about that in Parks and Rec, we did. Kevin's got a plan on how to make those flow.
And so are we hiring another
No, I
parks
think
guy?
he's gonna do it.
No, I understand that, but remember, we approved, and Parks approved, that we were gonna hire an additional full-time person.
Yes.
And so are we in the process of,
Here's the story on that. So you guys approved it without money. And so they worked, the Parks Commission and Greg were working for a couple times to redo the budget to accommodate that position. And at the same time, they moved, was it Mitch? Over, and he worked for a week or two, and then came in and he had some severe health issues and could not do the job anymore, so he resigned. So we got back together as a staff and said, what are we gonna do? And Kevin basically said, in less than a month, I've got my seasonals coming on and they can take over that workload. So instead of monkeying with the budget and cutting some things down to accommodate it, we are waiting until he can get his seasonals on and then they can take care of that. However, this dock issue is not dependent upon them. It is dependent upon, he had to replace a lot of the wood around the styrofoam underneath, which he had been working on. And now we have to get a big rope. And some of us are gonna go onto one side of the lake and we're gonna pull that dock across. And so, yes, this week was the plan to get that thing in the water.
can we make that into an event and we can, we can have teams and.
We have a lot of folks coming out to volunteer Saturday for the.
Back to the.
Cleanup.
They do a rope pull, yeah.
I
How's the liability in that?
Figure it out. Citizens will love it.
I believe if we were to look back on our minutes, we approved the budget change for a full-time, an additional full-time parks employee. And I can appreciate the fact that the season is upon us and maybe some people are lined up. But I don't want to lose sight of the fact that we had approved and Parks had given up those funds, deferred those funds, deflected those funds, reallocated those funds. I knew I'd come up with the right word at the right time.
I don't think they had a
Pay for
good
that.
plan though, Mary.
I had to know
They came
from,
back to us asking for us to just give them $56,000 instead.
Well, I know, but they, so anyway, last question, KRW. I know this will probably come up in the police conversation.
Yeah.
But that's special subcommittee. Can you just give us a quick,
Yeah, I talked to
Elevator.
KRW after the last meeting, and they indicated that they went well above and beyond their contract, and they do not have a warranty outstanding right now for that.
What?
they told us that we
Oh.
had until August, so
Oh,
I
Oh,
think we need to
no.
revisit that. Not here in this meeting tonight.
So do you guys wanna get with Dennis then and talk about that? Cause it
Yeah.
sounds like you really know about it.
Yeah,
yeah,
okay,
Okay.
but you know,
I would go with this table.
I'm not, I'll leave there after that.
Before you flip the table, okay, now, are we ready to adjourn?
I will make a motion to adjourn and then I shall flip that table.
And
second,
second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, so the meeting's adjourned at 8, I can't read that,